This is going to be the most complete Diablo 4 beginner guide on the internet. This video will make sure that you are aware of and understand all of the really powerful intertwining systems in Diablo 4 so that you can maximize your progress and your fun. If you have any questions, ask in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer. Feel free to use the timestamps to jump around and stick around to see me craft the 4GA item at the cube. Let's dive in. The first thing you're going to do when you log into Diablo 4 is create a new character. You can have up to 16 different characters currently. And in the Lord of Hatred expansion, you'll be able to choose from one of 8 different classes. All of the classes can do all of the content in the game, so don't worry about which one's going to be good or bad. Just pick the one that looks fun to you, and there will absolutely be a build for that class that can do everything in the game. Which class is the best is going to change every season as the meta shifts from one season to the next. When you get to the end of your character creation, it's going to ask you if you want to make your character seasonal or hardcore. You can do one, the other, or both. It's up to you. I always recommend playing seasonal. Seasonal is going to have access to exclusive seasonal rewards. It's where everybody else is going to be playing. And then once the season is over, your character becomes a normal character or a non-seasonal character, and you can continue playing it after the season's over if you want to. If you're jumping into the game for the first time or for the first time in a long time, you may have to make a decision on which version of the game you're going to be playing. The base game, Vessel of Hatred, which is the first expansion, or Lord of Hatred, which is the newest and current expansion. If you've never played the game before and you really want to enjoy the lore and the story of Diablo, then go ahead and start with base game and then work your way through Vessel of Hatred and Lord of Hatred. If you don't care about the story and the lore in these types of games and you just want to play what everybody else is playing right now, then jump straight into Lord of Hatred. And then once you've completed the story once, you'll be able to just skip straight to the end game when you create a new character. Once you get into the game, depending on which version of it you're playing, you're going to be working your way through this map. If it's your first character in that expansion or in that piece of content, then you're going to be playing through the story. So you're going to be following this symbol right here around the map. It's a little gold diamond. That's going to be the main story quest, and that's going to lead you through that content. And then when you get to the end of that content, it's going to dump you into the end game. The newest end game area is this town right here. It's called TOUGHNESS. This is where everyone is currently going to be hanging out in between whatever content they're running, which is why you see all these people standing around. The first thing I'm going to recommend you do once you get into this town is open up your map, hover over the waypoint in town, and right click it to favorite. You can see there, left click to travel here, right click to favorite, or if you're on console, it'll tell you what button you need to press to favorite it here. So favorite that. Now what that means is every time you use your portal to teleport, it's going to take you to TOUGHNESS. If you don't do this, then it just takes you to the nearest town wherever you were. So this can be really disorienting, especially for a new player. Every time you teleport, you end up in a new town where you don't know the layout. There's something like 5 or 6 other towns here. So you would have to memorize your way around 5 different towns, all the vendor locations, right? It's just going to slow you down. Much easier to set this one as your favorite. This town also happens to have the most efficient layout where you've got all the NPCs you want to interact with constantly right around the portal. So you don't have to spend a lot of time running around town looking for the NPC you want to have. So that's TOUGHNESS. That's the new town for the new expansion zone here. This whole area is called Scovos. So if you're playing through Lord of Hatred, you're going to be playing through all of this, and then you'll end up being dumped into this town at the end. Okay, the first thing that you're going to do once you've completed the campaign, or when you spawn into the game, if you decide to skip the campaign because you've already done it, is you're going to go to the WARPLANS command table. But before we dive into that, let's talk about the different difficulty levels that this game has to offer, because this is one of the most important features in the game, and this is basically your progression meter in this game. So we click on this statue, and it opens up the different difficulty levels. You're going to start on normal by default, and this is where the enemies are easiest. And this is something you can change while you're playing through the campaign. So once you start one-shotting elite enemies, you know, the blue and the yellow ones, it's time to up the difficulty. So that would be a good time to change it to hard. And once you start one-shotting magic and rare mobs, it's time to go up again to expert. So basically, when you start one-shotting the elites, that's when you know, okay, it's time to go up to the next difficulty. And if you do that, that's going to be a really good way to continue progressing. And here's what you see the rewards are for going up in difficulty. So at normal, there is no reward. Hard, you get monster kills, give 75% more experience, and you earn 25% more gold. So the mistake a lot of players make is they bump it up to hard thinking, oh man, I'm getting 75% more experience, but they don't realize they're taking 200% longer to kill enemies. So they're getting a net negative of progress per hour. If it slows you way down, then this is a net negative for you. ARPGs tend to be games where if you have it set to where you're killing elite monsters in less than 10 seconds, seconds, definitely less than 10 seconds, hopefully less than 5. That's where it's going to feel real good. And then you'll get to a boss, and the boss will be a bit of a challenge, but he won't be kicking your teeth in, right? So you've got the basic difficulties that you'll be climbing as you work your way through the campaign. And then once you finally got rare pieces of gear on in every slot and you start getting some legendary items, then you're going to be looking at Torment. And this is where loot in the game changes in a significant way. So it says here you get increased legendary, unique, and mythic uniques per Torment tier. So every time you go higher, you have a better chance of getting all of these things, right? Very important, because you just basically won't get mythic uniques down here. Super, super unlikely. Possible, but unlikely, right? And ancestral items become available. So we're going to talk about gear next so that you understand what that means. And then you've got Torment 2, 3. So if we look at Torment 3 here, it says set charms drop more frequently. So until you get to Torment 3, it's very unlikely you're finding very many set charms. And then at T4, you've got the Netheron. And then as you click on each one, you're going to see here unique charms at T8, mythic HORADRIC seals at T10. It says it drops more frequently, and while it is possible to get it before that, it's very unlikely you'll see it, or if you do, you won't see very many. Upping the Torment tier significantly changes the loot. You'll notice it instantly as you start killing elites, like, whoa, I'm getting way better gear than I was before. So speaking of gear really quick, let's take a look at this gear that I have situated here for you guys. So this is the different tiers of gear. You've got normal gear, blue, rare, legendary, unique, mythic. Okay, so you've got white, blue, yellow, gold, pinkish gold, and then purple. Those are the different tiers of gear. And then each of those can be ancestral. See this white smoky cloud on the item? This is the same piece of gear. One is unique and one is ancestral unique. What does ancestral mean? It simply means that it's 900 item power instead of 850 item power. So once you get to max level, enemies will start dropping gear at item power 850. That is the cap. Unless it's ancestral. Now it's 900 item power. And this is the highest item power that can drop in the game, is 900. So once you start getting 900 item level gear, it's pretty safe to start considering to craft that gear, spend some of your crafting currency on it. Now, above ancestral unique are ancestral uniques like this one with a greater affix. And then if you look at the stats, there's a star next to 5 wrath every 10 kills. That means that's the greater affix. In other words, it's the highest roll that you can get on that stat as a drop. At the end of the game, you'll have items like this one here that have 2 or 3, or if you're really lucky, even 4 greater affixes on them. And so that's your end game gear. Your end game gear is going to be gear with 2 greater affixes or 3 greater affixes, but you don't start finding gear with greater affixes on it until you start getting close to T10, which is why you want to up the difficulty of the game here at this statue every time you have a chance to, because that's going to significantly improve the drops that you're getting. It just takes a couple good drops, and now all of a sudden you're strong enough to go to the next difficulty. You get a couple more good drops, and now you're strong enough to go to the next difficulty, right? And you'll be able to feel it based on how fast you're killing things. Okay, so that's the different tiers of gear. So white means it doesn't have any affixes on it. Blue means it has 1 or 2. Yellow means it has 3 or 4. Legendary means it has a legendary stat on it. That's the gold text at the bottom of this one right there. You can add and remove these at will. We'll talk about that in a section later when we get into crafting. And then there's uniques, and you can see the gold text at the bottom. That makes it unique. The difference between legendaries and uniques is legendaries you can swap the stats on. You can craft these, you can remove the thorns from this and add a different stat. You can do all kinds of stuff to manipulate the stats that are on this. Unique items, they are what they are. You get what you get, and you can't change it from there. You can just upgrade the existing stats, but you can't swap them out. Mythic uniques, same thing, except that pink text down there is incredibly powerful. It's something really unique, really powerful that can be build defining, game changing for your character. So that's why it's really important to continue progressing your difficulty so that you're getting higher and higher tier rewards all the way up to those mythic items that you really want to get later on. And just so you're aware, this difficulty that you set here affects all endgame activities except for one. So right now it says we are on Torment 10, which means if we open up this menu right here, which shows you every endgame activity in the game, this is the list of activities that you're going to be doing right here. You've got Tree of Whispers, Nightmare Dungeons, HELLTIDES, Undercity, LAIR bosses, Infernal Hordes, and the Pit. Now, the difficulty that you set at the statue which is making this Torment 10, the whole world that we're standing in, affects all of these except the last one. So the pit is not affected by the difficulty that we choose of the statue, but all of these other ones are. Every one of these is going to be. So if you want better Tree of Whispers rewards, if you want better Nightmare Dungeon rewards, better Helltide rewards, better Undercity rewards, better LAIR boss rewards, and better Infernal Horde rewards, then you're going to want to make sure you set the world to the highest difficulty that you can comfortably complete in here before you do them. Now that leaves the pit, which, as I mentioned, is not affected by the difficulty that you set in the world. And that's because when you come to the Artificer's Obelisk, this is where you access the pit and the tower. You set the difficulty here. So before you run it, you tell it what difficulty you want to run, and it tells you what the Torment equivalent is. So you know, if you've got the world set on T6, you know you can at least do T6, and now you'll be able to do that. If you enjoy the massive amount of work that goes into these complete beginner guides, consider subscribing or leaving a comment to let the algorithm and other viewers know. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to it. Okay, so now you understand item power, how it works, and how 850 is the max item power, unless it's ancestral, and then it's now a 900 item power. You know it's ancestral because you've got the cloudy smoke falling onto the item here in the preview. And then after you've got ancestrals on, you're going to want to be looking for items with greater affixes, which you can easily spot because it has that little star icon on it. So that's the gear. So now let's dive into how you're going to be completing these activities with the new system called WARPLANNS. The first thing that you're going to want to do once you get here is interact with your WARPLANNS command table. What this does is allow you to group up a list of activities to knock out back to back in quick succession so that you're not having to choose in between each one what you're going to do next. It also gives you loads of rewards, both XP, experience, gold, and gear, everything that you need on the WARPLANNS. At first, you're only going to be able to pick a couple locations back to back, and then you'll be able to pick 3, and then you'll be able to pick 4, right? And as you get farther and farther in here, as you rank up, you'll be able to do more missions back to back with better rewards. Each one of these symbols is a different type of mission that you're going to become very familiar with, and we're going to talk about the difference between each one of these and the pros and cons of running each piece of this content here, because each piece of content in this game is good for a different thing. But generally, while you're looking at this, if you're not looking for a specific type of content to run, then you might look at the rewards you're going to be getting for them here. You can see this one has a blue flag, and if we hover over it, it tells us that we're going to get a medium amount of obdicite, that's crafting material. If we hover over this one, it says we get a large amount of obdicite, that's another crafting material. And then this one right here has a legendary key, and it says we get a large amount of dungeon keys from this one. Okay, you can kind of use those rewards depending on what you need, whether it's crafting materials, items, or experience, and you can pick ones that are going to give you any of those things. Now, every time you complete one of these, you're going to be getting experience that's leveling up the relevant tree over here. You can see that we've got a tree for Tree of Whispers. That's one activity in the game. Nightmare Dungeons, Helltides, the Undercity, LAIR bosses, Infernal Hordes, and then finally the pit, right? So each one of these has a skill tree, and each one of these skill trees has some really nice passives that can make doing those activities a lot more productive and a lot more fun. So we'll dive into these skill trees in a moment here. But first, let's talk about what each one of these activities is so that you're aware.
We live in a unique time. Right now, there's an arms race between scammers and the websites that we use. Scammers are utilizing AI and the latest tech to try and trick people out of their accounts, or even worse, their cash. But the best websites recognize that there is no set it and forget it solution. Instead, websites like G2A.com know that security is a journey, not a destination. They don't do the bare minimum. Instead, they attack the problem from all directions. G2A.com uses frequent audits, employee training, multi-factor authentication, encryption, and constant ongoing improvements to protect their users and their sellers. G2A is relentless with their security protocols because nothing is more important to them than protecting you, which is why on top of using all of the already mentioned defensive layers, they're also using the latest advancements in AI-driven monitoring systems to scan the millions of transactions occurring on their website in real time. Anything that gets flagged is sent to a trained human expert, ensuring that you're protected. So if you haven't yet, click my link in the description to see how much G2A.com can save you on your next digital entertainment purchase. I always check G2A for discounted Steam keys before buying a game that's been out for a few months, and I almost always save 20 to 80% on the purchase. So be sure to protect yourself by enabling multi-factor authentication and using trusted sites like G2A.com when making your digital entertainment purchases. Shout out to G2A for sponsoring this segment. Now let's get back to the video.
So first of all, you've got the Tree of Whispers. Tree of Whispers, if you open up your map and you don't have a bar at the bottom counting up, that means you don't have any Tree of Whispers progress completed so far. So the way that you progress your Tree of Whispers is these pink symbols all over the map here. See these pink ones? And And as you move the map around, you'll see them all over the place. And there's little activities you can do at each of these locations. Tree of Whispers are something that you will do on accident as often or even more often than you do on purpose. You'll be sent to some part of the world to complete an objective, and it just so happens that that objective happens to have some Tree of Whispers around it that you accidentally do at the same time while you're in the area. So when you complete an activity, you'll see that little flag pop up right there that says a Tree of Whispers activity has been completed. And then when you look at the map, you'll see your Grim Favors progress right here. Some activities give you 1, some give you 2, 3, 4, and so on. The amount of Grim Favors you get kind of depends on how long the activity tends to take. Once you fill it all the way up, then what you do is you teleport back to Temis, and you just head to the west side of town over here, and there's a crow sitting on a tree. Interact with that, and it'll give you a list of caches to choose from. Pick the one that you need the most. So there might be a cache of gauntlets, a cache of chest pieces, a cache of one-handed weapons, and then you pick the one that you need the most, whether it's weapons, gauntlets, or a chest piece. Then you open that up, you get some experience, some currency, and of course the gear that you chose out of it. The most important thing to be aware of with this is that it's going to constantly fill passively as you're doing everything else in the game. So just make sure that when it gets full, you go over here and you turn it in so that you get those rewards, that experience, and all that good stuff, and you can start filling up that bar again. You don't want to leave it sitting full and lock your progress on it. So that's the Tree of Whispers. The next activity you'll be doing a lot of is Nightmare Dungeons. If we look at the map, you'll see dungeons all over the place. You'll see these little dungeons like this. And when you find a sigil, that's what these are right here. You'll get lots of these as you play the game. Earthen Wound, Nightmare Sigil. And it says that it transforms this dungeon into a nightmare dungeon. And then it tells you what the benefits of that are down below. So for this one right here, we got materials reserved. Many material chests have been stashed here. So that's the benefit of doing this dungeon as a nightmare dungeon. When you run nightmare dungeons, you're going to get drops and loot as you kill the basic enemies and the mobs as you're running through. You can find glyphs in there if you haven't found all of your glyphs yet, as well as pretty much every type of loot in the game. The main reason you're going to be running these nightmare dungeons is because the WARPLANS command table is going to tell you to when you get to one. And don't worry, we'll talk about these trees in a moment. And the next activity you're going to be doing are HELLTIDES. HELLTIDES are still a fantastic source of experience. They work mostly the same that they always have. So if you've played the game before, there's not a lot that has changed here. The way these are going to work is you're going to look for an area on the map that is red. See how this area is red? It's colored in red. That means there's a Helltide here. You can also see this symbol right here. You hover over that and it says the Helltide rises. So you teleport to the waypoint that's nearest that Helltide. And then once you're here, you've got a lot of options on what you can do. So one common thing to do here is knock out your Tree of Whispers quests that are in this area. You can also head to the Accursed Ritual. Anytime you see this area start blinking, run over there during the Helltide. This is probably one of the most common mistakes new players make, is they don't run to the Accursed Ritual when people are here and running it. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Actually, I'll just go ahead and show you that now, because this is probably the most important thing that you can do here that people tend to miss out on. So when you get here, there's going to be 3 different altars. You can hover over each one and you can put a Baneful Heart in. Your Baneful Heart count is right here. It says I have 2 of these. So if you're ever wondering, do you have any and how many you have, it tells you right here whenever you're in a Helltide. It also tells you how many cinders you have. You're going to need these cinders to open these chests. See this chest on the map right here? It says Tortured Gift of Jewelry. So we'd run there when we had enough cinders. We'd open it up. If you're not sure how many cinders you need, just run up to the chest. It'll tell you how many you need in order to open it. Run out, kill enemies. Any of these enemies on your map that you kill have a chance to drop cinders. So kill enemies, complete tasks in here. The more you do, the more cinders you're going to get. And the faster you kill things, the faster you're going to get them. And then you can head over here to your chest of choice, that one or any of the other chests. If you open your map, you can see where they're all located. Here's the jewelry. Here's one for protection. So this could be any piece of armor. The jewelry could be amulet or rings, one or the other. So when you kill enemies, you'll get cinders. Every time you die, you lose half of your cinders. So you don't want to die while you're in the Helltide because it feels really bad. You just lost half your progress towards whichever chest you were trying to open. Now, whenever someone starts the Accursed Ritual, on the map, you'll see it start blinking here. Even if you're far away, you're up here on your mini map, you'll see a blinking at the bottom telling you in this direction, someone's doing something important. So whenever you see blinking on your mini map when you're in here, run towards it and kill that enemy. And usually that blinking is going to be for an Accursed Ritual. Sometimes it's taking you to an elite mob. That's a different activity, but a lot of times it's going to be taking you here to the Accursed Ritual. You'll quickly learn to know the difference. If it's blinking on this symbol right here on the map, that's the one where there will be a group of people here killing what can be a difficult boss, depending on how powerful everybody is. But usually in this area, everyone is kind of set themselves to a difficulty that is going to make it so that they can kill it pretty fast. So this is a fantastic farm for your cinders. If you see people putting them in, try to put one baneful heart in when there's a group of people here, because if you contribute a baneful heart, you get more rewards from the kill than if you don't contribute one. Although you get rewards regardless, it's always worth hanging around and doing them, even if you don't have a baneful heart to contribute. Where do you get baneful hearts? All over the game. You get these doing many different pieces of content, killing enemies. You're going to be collecting them all the time, and you're always going to have a handful of them on you once you kind of get going in the game. It's not something you ever need to farm on purpose. You're just going to constantly be collecting them, and then when you come into the Helltide, you'll see, oh man, I have 7 of them now, or 15, however many. And just make sure that once you have a lot of them, when you come to the Helltide, you come to this place and you do the Accursed ritual a couple times to put those bad boys to use. This is what one of the chests will look like right here. It says Tortured Gift of Amulets. It says I'm going to need 125 cinders in order to open it. So you just run around killing enemies, right? And there we got an aberrant cinder. That's what it looks like when it's on the ground. Whenever you see something glowing red in here like this, it's going to give you cinders when you open it. So those orange things that flew out, those are the cinders that you're collecting. The faster you move around and kill things in here, the faster you're going to get your cinders. So you never want to be in a Helltide where it's taking you a long time to kill the enemies, because it's just going to take forever to open these chests. So a general rule of thumb in Diablo is you pretty much want to be close to one-shotting the white mobs, the normal ones. And then the ones with a blue name and the ones with a yellow name, you want to be killing those in under 10 seconds. If you're spending more than 10 seconds on an elite mob, then the difficulty is probably too high for it to be efficient. Now, if you enjoy the challenge and you're not worried about progressing fast, power to you. Pick the difficulty that you enjoy the most. And if you like a challenge, go for it. The other thing to be aware of is the Helltide is a limited time activity. So you can see there's a timer right here above these items, and that's counting down. Once that reaches 0, whatever cinders you have on you get erased. They're gone. So spend them before that clock gets to 0, or else you just wasted them. Your baleful hearts, these carry over. So you don't have to worry about spending these every time you're in a Helltide. These will stay with you forever. And then below that, you see this little eyeball and a meter that's filling up. So when you kill enemies in here, you slowly but surely fill that meter. You're basically getting the attention of this elite enemy that is going to spawn on you when you fill this up. So you'll be running around, killing things, fill it up. And once you do fill it up, they spawn, you can kill them. And it's a nice bit of extra loot. The last thing to be aware of in the Helltides is there's an orange chest in here. Notice it's different from the rest of these chests because this one gives you better rewards and a higher chance at getting better rewards. And that's the Tortured Gift of Mysteries. There's always one of these in the Helltide. Actually, there's technically 2 of them. So this one is going to be here until about the 25-minute mark on this timer. Once that clicks down below 25, then it's going to move to a new location. So you can actually open more than one per Helltide if you want. So when you go over there and open it, you'll notice that it says it takes 250 cinders to open. So it does take quite a while if you're not collecting cinders very fast. And if you get close to 250 and you die, you just lost half of them, and that can be really painful. So don't worry about this Tortured Gift of Mysteries early on until you're really cruising through here at a faster clip. If you're just coming to the Helltide to knock it out for the sake of your war plans that you're doing, these down here, you want to go to the cheap ones, like the Tortured Gift of Protection generally. Unless you're looking for a specific type of gear upgrade, like if you know you need jewelry upgrades, then go ahead and open these jewelry upgrades. So that covers Helltides. The next activity you're going to be doing is the Undercity. Now, the Undercity is a really unique activity in this game. It plays very different from the rest of them. Well, to a degree. And the reason it feels different is because it's an objective-based activity. So the way it works is you come up to this Spirit Brazier here. This is the north side of town up here. This is the portal that you spawn at when you teleport to town, by the way. So you just run north from there, and you've got this Spirit Brazier right here. You can just open the portal, or you can put a tribute in, and the tributes here are some of the most powerful ways to farm items in this game. This is currently probably the most effective way to farm mythics. So if you get a mythic one, you can see this is legendary, this is rare, this is magic, right? Blue, yellow, legendary. And then if you get a mythic tribute and you put that there, you can get loads of mythics in here, especially when you set up this tree properly, like this, actually. I'll talk about the trees in a little bit, but I don't want to leave you hanging. So when you set the tree up like this, that's going to have these portal pranksters that spawn, they duplicate your loot. So if you get 1 mythic chest, you kill one of these pranksters, now you get 2 mythic chests. If you kill 3 of these pranksters, you get 3 mythic chests, right? You can get lots of items that way. So let's talk about how this works. Let's remove any of the mystery. So you'll put a tribute on there, and if you're not sure what one of these tributes does, just hover over it and it tells you right there. It says complete with attunement rank 1 or higher for a chance to earn legendary equipment. And if we hover over this one right here, complete with attunement rank 1 or higher for a chance to earn ancestral legendary equipment. And the next one would be mythic if it was that higher tier of quality, which is the best quality of gear in the game, which we'll go over all of the different gear qualities in a moment. So what you can do is put one of these in here to kind of choose what type of reward you're going to get at the end of it. That's essentially what these are doing. Some of them are going to give you armor. Some of them are going to give you runes, which you're definitely going to want loads of runes. We'll talk about why when we get to the crafting section. It's not just for putting in your gear, but it's also for crafting really powerful items, or you might need other crafting materials like obdicite, so you can run those. These are just for dictating what type of rewards you get. And then optional, you can click here and you can contribute more currency to further tune what rewards you get out of here. You can say more armor, more weapons, offensive legendaries, defensive legendaries, if you're looking for something more specific. And when you put one of these in here, just be aware of the fact that it is giving you better loot, but it's also making the run harder. Here you can see the difficulty is increased. So monsters are getting +2 monster power. So it's like 2 levels higher there. And then you're getting time bonus penalty of -35%. So while you're in here, it's a race against the clock. And there's certain enemies that you can kill to add time to your clock. When you kill them, now you're getting 35% less time added to the clock for each time you kill them. And there's a potion drop rate penalty. So you're getting 40% fewer potions as well. So just be aware that these do make it harder. So what I would do before you use one of these is run it without the key on your current difficulty. So we're going to go ahead and head into here. We click open portal, activate it, head into the city, the Undercity. Now, when you spawn in, there's a timer right here. You have to finish this thing before it reaches 0, or more accurately, you have to get to the boss room before it reaches 0. Once you get to the boss room, then the timer stops and it's no longer a factor. So it doesn't start until we leave this bubble. These are the 2 meters that you have to pay attention to when you're in here. This is the clock you're racing against. It tells you how many floors there are before you get to the boss. So you've got 3 floors to fill this meter up right here. There's tier 1 loot, tier 2 loot, tier 3, and tier 4 loot. So you want to fill it all the way up and get the best loot. Now, before you leave this circle, what I would do, look at the map of the area you're in. So it shows us we're right here. The portal we're trying to get to is here. And you kind of want to lay out a path that allows you to hit all these points and get to the portal, right? So I'm going to run here, run to this one here, maybe snake over here, here, and here. That's what you want to do. You want as efficient a path as possible through here so you get here in the least amount of time possible. These blue ones are going to fill this meter up. And these orange ones, when you kill these enemies, it's going to add time to your clock. Okay, those are the only 2 things you want to worry about. So I'm going to have my map overlay open here while we do this. And we'll come here first to the first location. It's going to spawn these enemies. And we'll go ahead and kill these enemies. And then we run to the next one, spawn the enemies in, kill them, just like that. We're going to add timer with this one. There, boom, our timer went up to 161. Clicking down, kill this one. Now our timer's up to 200. We're going to run over to the blue over here and spawn them in. There we go. So we're almost up to tier 1 loot. We'll go ahead and get this last timer for good measure. I don't think we would need the timer on this run. I think we're going to have plenty of time. But when you're first getting in here, it's best to get them all until you get comfortable with how long it's going to take you to complete the remaining floors. Okay, again, we have a second. The timer is paused once we start the new floor. Press M, look around, kind of lay out your path. You're here. You have to end up here, and you want to get all of these. So basically here, I'm going to do like this, a snake around in one straight line. That way you're not doubling back. Now earlier, you might have noticed there was some portals popping up on one of these shrines. So every time we touch a shrine, because of the skill tree setup for this activity that we chose, we have these goblins that spawn in sometimes, and there's a chance for them to spawn in every time we touch one of these shrines. And when they spawn in, you want to make sure to kill them. And when you kill them, you get an extra chest at the end of the run with the loot that you're looking for. So it can double the loot that you get in a single run, or triple it, or quadruple it, right? Depending on how many of these goblins that you find in here. So you always want to spawn in the elites, even if you don't need to kill them because your meter's full. Like we're on floor 2 out of 3 and we're almost done. Oh, there was the portals. Another goblin spawned in, but I killed him instantly on accident there. So that means we should have 2 bonus chests at the end, which is huge, especially if you are looking for a specific type of loot, like runes, which you're going to need loads and loads of runes. We'll go in here how important those are in a second. All right, now when you get to the end, now you are in the boss room, floor 4 out of 3. And You can see the timer has stopped, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. You filled up, you got your reward upgrades 4 of 4, hopefully. You're going to be getting the best loot possible when you kill this boss at the end. These boss fights can have some mechanics. Most people will blast through them unless you're on a difficulty level that is just a little bit hard for you, but most likely you're going to melt him. And when he dies, you'll get the loot that he drops, and more importantly, all the chests up here. So if you look closely, you can see I got 3 chests worth of loot, which means I got way more runes, and I didn't even use the tribute on this one, which would have significantly increased my loot. But so normally you would get the 1 chest, but because we found and killed 1 goblin and then another goblin, we got 2 bonus chests. So that's how huge that is. It really makes these runs so worthwhile. So once you're done, you pick up your loot, head out, and that's everything that you need to know about the Undercity. So here again, if we look at the Undercity, this is the tree you want to have. This one right here, it says it summons a portal prankster every time you touch the portal. That's huge because he's the one that is doubling and tripling and quadrupling your loot. So if you run a mythic tribute to get mythic and you find 3 portal pranksters, you can get 4 mythics in a single run. It's massive. So good, so good. So make sure if you get a mythic tribute, you do not use it. Do not use that mythic tribute. That's going to look like one of these, but it'll be purple because it's mythic. So don't use your mythic tribute until you get your tree to here. Otherwise, you're just wasting it. You're getting a fraction of the mythics that you should have gotten. All right, next up, we have LAIR bosses. LAIR bosses have gone through a lot of transformations over time. It's a process that fits a lot better into the WARPLANNS system. If we look at the map, you can easily see all of the LAIR bosses. This is a LAIR boss. See that symbol with the skull, with the antlers on it? This is a LAIR boss. This is a LAIR boss. This is a LAIR boss. And if you hover over it, it tells you that you need a key down there at the bottom, LAIR key. So if we go and we kill this boss and we have a LAIR key on us, we can open a chest at the end. The chest only spawns after we kill the boss. So you kill the boss, a chest spawns, and then you use one of your LAIR keys to open it. Now there's harder bosses with better loot, like this one right here. And it says we need a greater LAIR key. Of course, these are more rare, but you have a chance for some really cool items from here. So when you see that you've got a lot of keys piling up, that means you've potentially got some really good loot waiting for you. So what you can do is you can either find out which boss is dropping the gear that you need, or you can just run each one time. You know, it's up to you how you want to do it. So if we click on this one right here, we head to this guy, you'll spawn in an area like this. And it's basically, most of these bosses have a tiny little mini dungeon. I'm not sure why, but they have like a little mini dungeon right before them of absolutely no consequence. So you can run right through it and head over to the boss, and there will be an altar. These bosses can have some pretty difficult mechanics. So, you know, just try not to take any easy to avoid damage and do your best. This boss has a really mean stab. If you stand in front of him when he does it, he sucks you into his body and it kills you. All right, so once you kill the boss, we'll go through his death animation there, drop a tiny bit of loot, and then the actual loot, a chest spawns. So when the chest spawns, you can use your greater LAIR key or your LAIR key, depending on the boss, to get some solid loot from it. So here you can see we got some double GAs, some ancestrals, some really solid loot. Oh man, this chest was almost perfect for crafting. I'll save it and go over it when we dive into crafting later. All right, so that's LAIR bosses. Now, I haven't mentioned it yet, but while you're doing your warplans, you can teleport directly to them. So you don't have to open the map and individually pick out the thing you're doing next. No, just open your map, click teleport, and then that's going to automatically teleport you to the next thing. So for me, the next thing on this list is HELLTIDE. So if I click that, it would teleport me to the currently open HELLTIDE. Now, sometimes with the HELLTIDE specifically, you'll click it and there won't be an active HELLTIDE. So HELLTIDEs will be up for like 55 minutes and then they'll be down for 5 minutes until they move to the next location. So if you click travel to HELLTIDE and it doesn't, that's what's happening. You just need to wait 5 minutes and then head into the HELLTIDE when it opens. Maybe do some crafting, sort your inventory, whatever you need to do. And one last thing about those LAIR bosses, they are going to be dropping boss parts here. So they'll drop things like this, the malignant heart, for instance. So what you can do with those boss parts, I'll go over this more when we get to the crafting section, because the crafting section is going to be huge, but you can put these boss parts in here and then you can amalgamate. So it'll take 5 of them and give you a unique. So transmute. So it gave us Yen's blessing for 5. And so you can keep doing that. If one of the bosses drops something that you need, you can use those parts to try and farm it. It's another way to get gear in this game. If you've been doing loads of warplans and killed a few of those LAIR bosses, you probably have enough of those to come in here and get some unique items right now. All right, the next endgame activity we need to go over is Infernal Hordes. Infernal Hordes, you can either do from your warplans, so you just press M and teleport to it when it was up on the list here, or you can go to them manually by going to your dungeon keys in your inventory, these little tabs here, and then you right click and it'll ask, do you want to activate this onslaught for the Infernal Hordes? And say, yeah. Then it's press M to open the map, and then here's the Infernal Horde location. If you ever want to teleport to it quickly, that's where it's at right here. It's in Kyrgyzstan, just to the right of the Imperial Library waypoint here. Teleport in there. Let's talk about how this works. So the way the Infernal Hordes work, first thing you're going to do is kill the mobs that are in here. This is just a quick little litmus test, I guess, to see like, am I where I should be? Was that too hard? Was it too easy? And then 3 spires are going to pop up. So almost always 3 spires are going to pop up. You could just blindly pick the highest quality one, or you could have a strategy where you're constantly upgrading masses or something like that. Or maybe you want to constantly upgrade the soul spires so that you kind of get a compounding effect there. It's up to you how you want to strategize this thing. So we'll go ahead and take this legendary node right here. Now, enemies are going to spawn in here. In the top right, we have a timer that's counting down, and we have a currency that's filling up there. We've got 4 of them, and you want to kill as many of these guys as you can. And then on your map, you'll see this pop up. So anytime you see those little symbols on the map, you want to go kill those enemies because they're going to be dropping this currency right here. So now we're at 13, 14, right? Oh, here comes another wave of them. So you're just going to bounce from that icon on the mini map to wherever it spawns next. So you can kind of work your way to the middle, just kind of wait for it to spawn again. There's another one. It's blinking. So we run over there, kill it, keep on going. Now, when that wave ends, you get 3 more options again. Sometimes you might have a 4th, depending on what's going on and how you have your settings set up here. But usually it's going to be 3, just like this. Okay, we've got an interesting one here. Monsters now have greatly increased health, but we can spawn Aether Goblins. Okay, cool. Just take the most rare option. You can see we're on wave 1 out of 10. So that's the only downside about this place. Compared to other activities, this one can be longer in terms of how much of a time commitment you're signing up for. But some people really enjoy the onslaught of waves spawning in. You just stand here, you kill everything as it spawns in, and then you get loot at the end. Once you get to the last wave, which might be after 6 waves or 10, depending on the compass that you use to get in here, or if you use one at all, you'll have 2 options. You'll get to choose to face the council members, or you'll get to choose to face off with Brutok, Lord of Chaos. You'll need 666 Aether to do this one, so at first, you're only going to get to choose this one right here. It's going to be a while before you get to 666 Aether in here. You'll run on up into the room, the council will spawn, and you can go ahead and kill them. And once you kill them, they'll drop some loot for you, and you'll be presented with a few different chests. So you've got this first chest that requires 400 burning Aether. This is your greater equipment. And then whatever Aether you have left, you can spend on spoils of materials. So you'll get Obdicite and gem fragments. This is great for crafting. Or you can spend it here if you just really need gold. And you're going to need a lot of both of these things, gold and crafting materials. So you would usually go with this one first if you're still looking for gear that you think might come out of this chest. And then you would go to one of these 2, probably this one here. And you'll get loads of crafting ingredients, as well as some tributes. So that's everything you need to know about the Infernal Horde system. And then last but definitely not least is the pit. So the pit is important for a couple of different reasons. So if we come here to the Artificer's Obelisk, we can click on it and you can see there's 2 different things here. You've got the Artificer's Pit and then you've got the Artificer's Tower. This is a leaderboard. So you would run this if you want to try and get to the top of the leaderboard, maybe put your name on that list of the top 1,000 players that are playing your class. This one's completely optional and you choose the difficulty by selecting it here. This one here, the Artificer's Pit, is one that you'll need to do. This is what you run in order to level up your glyphs. What are your glyphs? Well, as you leveled up, you first had 70 regular levels and you were putting those points into your skill tree. Then after 70, you get Paragon points. You can get up to 300 Paragon points and then you'll put those onto your board. So you'll start down here at the bottom, you'll work your way up, right? And we'll do a whole section on the Paragon board in a minute because there's a lot of strategy that this thing is not nearly as complicated as it looks. In fact, I'm going to say that this presentation is purely to make it look complicated when it's not. But it's actually a very simple system. And when I'm done explaining it to you later, you'll never be confused by looking at this board again, okay? But all you need to know right now is glyphs right here. You get glyphs You're going to collect these by doing nightmare dungeons, by running all types of content after you hit 70. You're going to be getting glyphs to drop. And these glyphs, you can socket into your board. And then if we hover over this one right here, it says it's increasing our demonology damage by 81%, and then another 7.6%. And then we get another 17% increased damage while we have a greater demon summon, right? All of that's coming from this glyph. So this glyph is giving us massive damage increases once we have it leveled up. And every time we level it up, those damage increases go up a little bit, such that when you have 50, 60, 70, or 80 points in this thing, it's increasing your damage by a lot. So glyphs, you collect them by running just about any type of content in this game. They can drop, but then you come here to the Artificer's Pit to level them up. So let's go ahead and do one of these bad boys real quick. So we'll open this up. Here we go. We've got a pit. All right, so let's go ahead and head on into the pit and show you what happens in here. So when you spawn in here, you've got a timer ticking down right here. And the goal is for you to fill this up by killing enemies, particularly elites, right? The elites are going to fill this up really fast. The trash mobs barely move the needle at all. So we want to fill this bar up by killing enemies. And then down here, you have some important information. You've got speed mastery. So if we get to the end before this fills up, then we get to spawn the awakened glyph stone. And we'll use that awakened glyph stone to level up the glyphs that go in this board right here. So these bad boys down here. And then you've got survival mastery. So if we complete this without dying, we get an extra glyph upgrade at the end. Okay, so those are two things to be aware of. So right now, this arrow shows where we are. We're at the very beginning, and this timer is what we're racing to the finish line. So as we kill things, we're going to move our arrow to the right, hopefully faster than that timer goes. And basically, just want to focus on the elites. Those are the blue mobs, the yellow mobs, right? Now look how fast. We've killed one pack of elites and a little bit of trash. We're way ahead of that timer now. So the elites are the key to progressing in here. You can basically ignore all of the trash mobs. As long as you're killing elites, you have no problem. If you die in here, you lose your survival mastery. You just respawn at the last checkpoint and you keep on going. So it eats a bit of your time, but you can still get to the end and upgrade your glyphs at the end. Another unique thing about these is that no enemies are dropping loot, as you'll notice. The loot all comes at the end. So this is all about blasting. If you're someone that just wants to blast enemies, you don't want to think about loot, whether you should pick it up or not, you know, you just want to get it all in one place at the very end, then these are perfect for you because only the last boss drops all the loot. Now, every time you go down to the next level of the pit, you'll notice you'll get to these little doors, you run in it, the zone changes and the enemies change. So you can use that to your advantage. If you get into a zone where the enemies are really difficult, really annoying, or you get a set of elites you just can't kill, don't worry about it. Just run to the next zone, ignore them, and continue on. Now, when you fill the bar, this boss will spawn in and you'll be able to fight him. The bosses aren't usually too heavy on mechanics, although some will have a move where it's really deadly and it's just kind of learned by dying to it. But when you kill him, then boom, all the loot pops out. Go ahead and pick it up. And then this is the awakened glyph stone right here. You interact with it at the end. And if you've picked up a glyph so far, and most likely you have at least one, and now you'll be able to choose which one you want to level. So when you click on it, it tells you some important information here. All of the numbers that are green, those are the ones that are going to go up when you level it up. So for every 5 willpower purchase within range of this glyph, it's going to go up by 0.07 every time we level it up, and 0.01 for increased demonology skill damage. You have to get your glyph to level 50 to unlock this legendary one right here. So our glyph's level 72. We have it. This level 4 glyph, if we look at it, you can see right here, it says when upgraded to level 50, you get this unlocked. Also worth noting about glyphs is the radius that they encompass goes up as they level up. So that's what that's telling you. I'll go into that on the Paragon system. I don't want to dive too deep into it in the explanation here. So you'll pick one to level up, just click upgrade. And now we had upgrade failed. How did that happen? Because right here, it says pit level 70. Chance of success is only 35% because this is a level 73 glyph and we're in a level 70 pit. So anytime you're below that, you've got a good chance of failing. Now, this glyph is level 66, but the pit's level 70. So we have a 70% chance of succeeding. And this level 4 glyph, you've got a 100% chance of succeeding. In fact, if we upgrade a level 4 glyph while we're in a level 70 pit, it's going to go up more than once. So it's level 4, let's upgrade it once. It just went up to 8. So we got 4 levels at a time. This is a really nice catch-up feature where if later on you decide you want to use a different glyph, you can level up really really fast by running a high level rift. So even though you only get a handful of upgrade attempts, you're getting 4 levels per upgrade. So you can get 16 in a single run. So that's everything you need to know about the pit. The things that make it unique are this is where you upgrade your glyphs, and the level is determined by what you choose when you enter the pit, not by the difficulty that you have set the game to. Now, as I was demonstrating these activities for you guys, we accidentally filled up our Grim Favors here. So we'd go to the tree over here and we can choose which one we want. Now my options are pretty interesting because of my Tree of Whispers tree. We worked our way down to this one here, which says each Whisper Cache has a chance to drop a Resplendent Spark, which is huge. This is arguably the best node on this tree if you want to work your way down to it for your Tree of Whispers. But because I have this one right here, it says whispers are always greater quality or junk. And I mean, that's literally what they are before, but now you see it. It actually gives you junk instead of a cache that is junk, but it doesn't really display it as junk, but it is. Okay, so we take the legendary one. Nice. And now we can open that and we get some nice rewards. Perfect. And the most exciting thing we got from that was Tributes of Harmony there. That's what I'm really excited about. And I'll explain why in a moment, but it's a crafting thing. We want more runes. Okay, so now you know all of the endgame activities. That's every single one. And now you know how to do every single one of those activities. You don't have to worry if you're doing it right, if you're doing it wrong, right? That's all there is to those. There's a little bit of strategy, as I mentioned, as I was going through each one, but they're really simple, really straightforward. You do them a couple times and you've got it. You can either randomly do them by just going through your war plan, just clicking the teleport button, letting it take you to the next thing before coming back and turning it into this guy right here, and then starting your new war plan, right? Or not. Or you can go into them manually by just going to their locations in this zone to start them, or using the keys that you have in your keys tab to open them. So you use the key, and then after you use the key, it'll say press M to show that entrance on the map. So we press M and there it is. It's blinking. And then we would just click on it and teleport in. Boom. That's it. But that's all of the endgame activities that you're going to be participating in right now and how to do them. Now let's quickly talk about all the different types of equipment we've got, because we've got some new stuff here. We've got charms and we've got seals, and then we've got runes here that we need to talk about, consumables, right? So let's quickly go over the gear that we're going to be picking up and using in this game. So here's all of your gear slots that you're going to be finding and equipping. You've got a head, chest, gloves, pants, boots, weapon, an offhand if you're using one, and then you got 1 amulet and 2 rings. This is all pretty straightforward. This has been in the game for a while, and this hasn't changed a whole lot since the game started, but the items that we're using with this has changed a lot. And the way we upgrade these things has changed a lot. So first tab here is your equipment tab. This is where any gear that you find as you're running through these endgame activities is going to end up when you pick it up. It'll land right in here, and then you can sort through it here. And what you're going to want to do with all this gear when you pick it up is, if it's good, use it. If not, then you're going to come here to the blacksmith and you are going to salvage stuff. You can almost always salvage the common items unless you're hunting for a unique of a specific type. Let's say you know that your weapon, your best in slot weapon for your character is a unique 2-handed axe. Well, if you find a normal 2-handed axe, you would hang on to that and then you'd use the cube to upgrade that normal item into a unique with either a very high chance of getting it or a 100% chance of getting it, depending on how many unique 2-handed axes there are at the time. But for the most part, you're going to be salvaging the things that you pick up here. And that's going to give you these crafting materials that you're going to need loads of while you're upgrading this gear at the blacksmith. When you have gear in your inventory, there's a few icons to be aware of that are really important. This will help you sort through your gear a lot faster. So right here, you can see this item. It has that star right there that I'm hovering over. That means there's a greater affix. That means this is worth looking at when you pick it up. Is that a greater affix that you need? For example, if it was a piece of armor and it was a all resistances greater affix, that's a potentially really good piece of gear for you to craft, because if you get all resistances instead of say fire resist like this one has, all resistance can be really useful for padding out your defenses. If the greater affix isn't a stat that you need, then you can go ahead and salvage it. Next up, this icon right here. See these little 2 swords crossing? So that means you're improving your Codex of Power. Anytime you see that symbol, that's always good to find. So even though the rest of the stats on this thing are horrible, it's nice because we've just upgraded our Codex. What does that mean? Well, anytime we find a piece of gear, like these gloves, we can change the legendary power on that piece of gear, or we can find a rare piece of gear and we can add a legendary power to it. How do we do that? From our Codex of Powers. So here's our Codex of Power. We come to the Occultist, right here next to the blacksmith. And We put an item in here and then we click here and we've got all of those aspects that we've collected. And if we hover over an aspect right here, it tells us for this one, critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by 48%. And then after that, it tells us the range that we could have on this item is between 30 and 50%. So the max is 50 and we have found an aspect with 48. That means we're really close to having a perfect aspect here. But let's say that this said 30% and then we put it on a piece of gear. Later, we found an item with a 50% aspect. Awesome. We could salvage that and come here and put the 50% version for an extra 20% attack speed from this aspect. That's huge. So every single legendary that you find gets added to your codex when you salvage it. It's added to this list in here. You'll find loads and loads of these things, and you're finding them by salvaging legendaries. So that's why you want to salvage legendaries, so that you can improve your codex of powers, but also so that you can get crafting materials like these two things right here. If we hover over this one, it says, this shard is used to imprint legendary aspects onto standard equipment at the Occultist and to masterwork standard equipment at the blacksmith. So we use this to put aspects on our gear and we use this material to masterwork. Two things you're gonna be doing loads of. So you're gonna need lots of this material. Same thing for this one right here. And then one last symbol to be aware of. That's this one right here. So you see that little, I don't even know how to describe that red symbol in the top right corner there. That just means that it's gonna unlock a new look. So we get that, boom. Now we have the ability to wear that. If we come here to the wardrobe and we wanted to, we can make our weapon look like any cosmetic we have found so far in the game. It's a pretty cool cosmetic system. Of course, the best cosmetics are not going to be found that way. They're going to be in the cash shop. But if you want free cosmetics, then that's the way you're going to do it. So that's the first thing you can do at the blacksmith, salvaging items, right? The next thing you can do is repair, which I recommend you do anytime you come talk to this guy, because your gear is always going to break at the most inopportune time. You'll be in the middle of a dungeon, you'll die, and then boom, it'll tell you something's broken. And some of the content that you do in this game, if you leave it, it ends. You can't go back after you leave. So if your gear breaks in there, you're just done. You're forfeiting that attempt, which can be a real bummer. So repair anytime you come here and talk to the guy. Really, there should be a box here that you can check and it just automatically repairs your gear anytime you talk to him. You shouldn't have to go to this tab and hit repair. This little feature is so 1990 to begin with. Then the next tab is forge equipment. So this is a pretty important one, mainly because of the last one right here. You could forge magic gear. You could forge rare gear. I don't think you'll really use that all that much. However, the mythic one, when you find a spark in this game, and there's a couple of ways to find those, which I'll go over here in a moment. But when you find one of these, you can come here. You can say, hey, I want a mythic unique cache, and then tell it you want to craft one. Cool. It says it's going to use 2 sparks. Go ahead. And now you can go ahead and take a shot at one of these. Boom. And what do we get? We got an ancestral helm. Which one? The Heir of Perdition. Very cool. Now, it's ancestral. We didn't get any greater affixes on it, which is a bummer, but we did get a great helmet that I can use on this build right now, so I'd be happy with this. So that is the primary use of the Forge Equipment tab here. Next, we have tempering. Tempering is something that you can start doing really early in the game, and it's one of the fastest ways to increase the power of your character in the entire game. As soon as you have a bunch of rare equipment on, you can come here and you can temper it. Now, what does tempering do? Well, you'll find little pieces of paper as you're playing through the game, and they won't appear to have any use. You just right-click them, and then they appear in here. And so you'll first find blue versions of that paper with, mediocre stats, and then you'll find a rare one. Let's say for this damage one right here, you might find the first one that increases your damage up to 10%, and then the next one increases it up to 20%. And then finally, you find the highest version of that paper, and it increases your damage up to 30% here. So you can take and put any of these onto your gear, which is really, really powerful because you have so many pieces of gear. That's a lot of multiplicative values that you're adding onto all your gear. So do not sleep on this. In fact, this should be one of the first types of crafting that you start engaging with in this game. Once you've got a bunch of pieces of rare equipment on, come in here and go ahead and, especially like your weapon, come in here, look for these stats. You can go crit chance under the weapon category, or you can go into offensive and you can just take flat damage. Flat damage is always really good early on in the game. Before you have a lot of your multipliers up and running, you can come in here and just take whatever damage type applies to you. So if you're doing fire damage, you can come in here and look for fire damage. If you're physical, you could look for physical, and you can just take the type of damage that you're doing. So if we pick one of these, it tells us down here what it's going to cost. Because this is a greater AFIX ancestral legendary, it costs 50 Forgotten Souls to temper it. If we put this item and we put a stat on it, it's only going to be 25 because it doesn't have any greater affixes. Now, if we put this unique item, it's not even ancestral. It's only costing rawhide and veiled crystals, 2 materials you will always have more than enough of. So if you're talking about a rare item, it's using materials you're going to have loads of. So don't be afraid of using these to temper stats onto every single piece of gear once you've got a decent set of rare gear going on. That's just going to power you through the content that you're on, allow you to raise the difficulty, get better loot faster. If you're not sure what stats to take whatever flat damage increases your damage. If you're not sure what defensive stat to take life. And then on your boots, almost always move speed, because nothing feels better in ARPGs than moving fast. It's going to keep you out of danger. It's going to help you get out of AO faster. It's going to help you get away from enemies that are chasing you, keep the distance when you need it. It's just going to keep you alive, and it's essential for boss fights where they have a lot of mechanics you need to get in and out of. And then move speed just feels good when it comes to clearing maps fast. So move speed, I can't recommend it enough. And with this expansion, we'll also be able to get lots of move speed somewhere else, here in our charms and our talismans. We'll talk about that later. One last thing that you can do with the blacksmith, we've got masterworking. Masterworking is really powerful. The way masterworking works, you see all my items here, they've got symbols all over them right now. Actually, this one says it's got a transmog on it. This blue one here means it's been favorited. And all that means is when it's in here and I'm talking to the blacksmith, I can't accidentally salvage it. That's why you favorite things that you don't want to accidentally salvage. You don't want to like accidentally put something on. Now, oh, your main piece is in here. You hit all items and boom, you just deleted your main piece of gear. So that just prevents it. So if you want to favorite an item, just hover over it and you can hit spacebar on PC and it favorites it or unfavorites it. And then this symbol right here means it's in my armory, the yellow one. That means I can go there and I can put this whole outfit on and all my skills and all my setup for this build. This build comes in one click. And then if I want to switch to another build that's using a different skill, I can press one button and switch over to that as well. And just for good measure, I'll show you where that's at right here, armory. Click here and you can have multiple loadouts. You can click your loadout and you can equip it. You can override it, rename it, clear, whatever you want. But now let's talk about masterworking. So the last symbol on here is this blue symbol underneath, right? That means this item has been masterworked to its max. And then if we look at the stats on this item, next to the fire resistance, you'll see the blue symbol again and a massive fire resistance number there. So that is the stat that ended up being masterworked. So let's go ahead and do this to a piece of gear real quick. And basically the way that masterworking works is if we put an item in here, like if we put this one in here, for example, we can choose to upgrade it and it tells us it's going to use 10 Forgotten Souls and it's going to use 10 Obdusite. So when you're picking up Obdusite and Forgotten Souls, this is what they're going to be used for. It's for masterworking. And if we look at the stats on the item right now, it's got 12 crit strike, 20 lucky hit, 20 movement speed, and 2 to core skills. If we upgrade it, you'll notice all of those go up a little bit. Now the 2 didn't go up to 3 because there's a decimal point in there, so it's rounding down right now. If we upgraded enough time, that 2 core skills will become 3 core skills. Now the important thing to know about masterworking is you want to craft all of the stats onto it before you masterwork. Let's go over how you might craft an item. Let's say you found a GA item. It could be a rare item like this, or it could be a legendary, right? Remember, the only difference between a rare and a legendary is the legendary has that legendary stat on it, but that doesn't matter because you can change it. So effectively, an ancestral rare is just as good as an ancestral legendary. A rare with greater affixes is just as good for you as a legendary with greater affixes. There is no difference. Just keep that in your mind. A rare is literally just as good as a legendary for you, because you can turn a rare into a legendary in a single click. So let's go ahead and craft these boots. Now, one of the cool things you can do here is you can put this pair of boots in here. And let's say we like all the stats on this except for that physical resist. That's just really underwhelming. So what we could do is we could remove that physical resist. We could say, let's remove an affix. It's going to put the materials in there that we would need to remove this affix. We would come over here to our consumables, and then you'll see only these ones are highlighted. That's because you can only use these in this recipe. And what these are for is you're telling it what you want to remove. So physical resistance is a resistance, right? So we'd grab this one right here that says use to target resistance affixes. So we put that there. Now it's going to remove one of the resistance affixes, which there's only one. So now our boots only have 3 stats. Perfect. We took the one bad stat off of these things. Now we can add a stat. So we can add an affix. And again, we can tell it what we want to add. we can say, you know what we would like to have here is some move speed, because boots without move speed is kind of sad. So we use this one here, used to target mobility and utility. So put that in there and we say add, and we're hoping for move speed. Now we got move speed. So we got 23% move speed. Now the nice thing about this is when you're adding stats, there's a chance for them to be a greater affix. So that move speed stat could have been a greater affix. It didn't land that way this time, but that's okay. If we wanted to, we could keep trying. We could remove that by clicking the remove affix with the same thing, and then we could try to add it back on again. To save time, I'm not gonna make you guys watch me do that. So let's go ahead and continue. So now these boots have all the stats on them that we want, right? So it's a rare pair of boots, 1 GA. It's got 2 to Hellfire skills. It's perfect. Once I'm done crafting this, this would be a decent upgrade for me. So the next thing we would do is come here and we would temper on. Remember, we want to add all the stats to this thing before we do anything else. So we would come here and temper on mobility, move speed. So we would come here, put the boots in to the tempering tab, click on mobility, move speed, and it says it's going to take 25 of these. Go ahead. And we got 18% move speed on them. 18's not good. That's at the lower end of the possibilities. So we could re-roll it if we want. Just costs 25 more. Now we got 17. Try again. Now we got 23. All right, 23 is not bad. So now we can come to the Occultist, turn this thing into a legendary by putting on whatever aspect we're using. So like this, put it on, and now it's a 1 GA pair of boots. And so now that rare item that had 1 bad stat has all good stats and it's legendary, right? So that's why you can take a 1 GA rare, 2 GA rare and make it a perfect item. So now if you like the way the boots look, right? You like all the stats on this, you can come here and you can masterwork this. So go ahead and you just keep hitting masterwork and the quality is going up each time. It's using some of your currency, but you have loads of this stuff, so don't stress that. And then when you get to the last upgrade, it says masterwork a random affix. So now it's going to masterwork one of these affixes. It could hit any of them. It could hit the greater affix or it could hit any of the other ones as well. There's no stat on here that's off limits. So we go ahead and upgrade and we see what we got. So it upgraded our willpower, which let's say we're really not excited about that. We didn't want the willpower to get the upgrade. Really, anything else would have been better. So we can use one of our Netheron. Remember we talked about that earlier? Well, here's what it's for. So when you find one of these, now you know why you're excited. You're finding these so that you can change what gets masterworked. You can get the perfect combination here. So we can say, okay, try again. And boom, this time it landed on move speed, which, you know what? We'll take that for now. That's not a bad one to hit. The Hellfire skills would have been great too. So just like that, we took a rare item with a single greater affix and we turned it into an upgrade for this character. Very easy to do. So that's everything you can do at the Blacksmith. Really important character. The Occultist, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but the Occultist has a lot of things they can do. The first and most obvious thing you can do at the Occultist is use the Codex of Power to put legendary stats onto these items. That's the gold one with the star down at the bottom of this item. So this one has one. So what we could do is we could salvage this item to put it in the Codex of Power to put on items later, and you can reuse it as many times as you want. So don't be shy about putting these powers onto all your gear. Once you find a good power for your build, make sure you always have it on one of your pieces of gear. Different pieces of gear have access to different powers. So just because you can put it on your boots does not mean you can put it on your weapon. Just be aware of that. So you'll put an item in here, click Codex of Power, choose the one you want, and then imprint it. And it's going to use 30 of this currency right here. As you can see, you get loads of this currency, so don't be shy about using this to put aspects on. These are essential to making your build function. We talked about how you add powers to this list. That's by salvaging legendaries. And anytime you salvage a legendary, that power ends up in here if you don't already have it. If it's a better one, it upgrades it. So if it was 10% more damage and you found a 15% more damage one, it upgrades it to 15%. Then you can also craft sigils. This used to be way more important before, when players used to do a lot of crafting of sigils to go into nightmare dungeons and infernal compasses and all that kind of stuff. But one of the most important ones to be aware of here is the Undercity tribute crafting. So you can come here and you can craft one of these and it tells me, oop, I just got a new one of these, a harmony. Again, you're going to want loads and loads of these. So this is always really nice to get, is because you can use them to get mythic items, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. So the dungeon sigils get you into nightmare dungeons. The infernal compass gets you into the infernal horde. That's where the enemies spawn in waves around you in that little room before you go fight the boss at the end. And then the tributes, these are what you slap into the Undercity runs as an upgrade to them. So you put it in there and now you're more likely to get whatever it says you're more likely to get because you used that tribute. It's basically just buffing your run. Next, we have salvage dungeon keys. So as you're running through the game, you're going to get lots of dungeon keys, and you may or may not be running these things manually. Maybe you're just running them by clicking here, the teleport button, and you're not using your keys that are here. And so they're building up and you're getting too many, and now you can't pick them up anymore. Well, you can come here and you can salvage any of the ones you don't want to hang on to. Like this one says, enemies hoard knowledge here, granting extra experience. So you could just chuck those, right? If you didn't want that, if that's not very important to you. And by doing that, you're getting sigil powder, and then you can use that sigil powder to craft these items here. So if you want to be able to craft more tributes, for example, you could salvage the keys that you find so that you can craft sigils with that crafting material. And next we have salvage charms. This is a big one. You're going to be finding loads and loads of these charms as you play through the game. First, you'll find blue ones, then rare ones, and then eventually you'll find these set ones. But you're most likely only going to need 1 or 2 sets when you get to this point, right? You're going to wear 1 set, maybe 2 up here. And that means all the other sets you don't really have a use for, except for salvaging them. So you can click on these when you don't need them, like this one right here, salvage, and you can see there, it gave us 10 infused HORADRIC resin. That is so important, right? Now, this is one of the most powerful upgrade cycles in the game. It's really important. So let's talk about charms and seals really quick. So you're going to eventually find unique seals, right? And like this one right here, it unlocks 5 charm slots. And you'll eventually find loads of those, but you're hoping that you eventually find one that says unlocks 6 charm slots. And when you finally do, it's going to look exactly like this one. So if we put this here, it looks exactly the same, except this one down there, it has +1 charm slot at the bottom. So it's a 5 slot seal, but then it also got a bonus stat of +1 charm slots for a total of 6, right? So it looks exactly like this one. So make sure you always look at these to check if it's a 6 slot. And then when you have a 6 slot, now you can put 1 in every single one. In Lord of Hatred, they've basically added Diablo 3 sets to the game, which means these are incredibly powerful and they can transform the way that your build is performing. You can pick any set that applies to your build and it's going to make you a lot stronger, which means you'll have a bonus one left over, and you can use these as little stat stones. So this one gives +3 to all my skills that I use, and then 509 cold resistance. Perfect, that's fine. You could get an ancestral unique charm that says that your 5-piece sets only require 4 pieces. So then you can get a 5-piece in 4 of these slots, and then you can put a 2-piece set in the other 2, right? Lots of ways you could deal with this, but these charms are way more powerful than just the set bonus that they're giving you, because if we look at these, look at the stats that you can get on each charm, the top 2 stats on each of them, which is all you're going to be looking at first until you start collecting sets of these things. This one has cold resist and max life. That's really underwhelming compared to this one that has +3 to all my skills, right? That's huge. Or this one that has +2 to all my skills, or this one that has +3 to all the skills I use. So that is really powerful. Plus fire resistance. So those are 2 stats that are really powerful for my build. Not to mention you can get move speed. On this one right here, we get 16% move speed. So my perfect charms would probably be +3 to my skills, or +4 if it's a greater AFIX, and move speed. That would be beautiful, right? That's what I would like to have for all of these. But what are the odds you're going to find those? Pretty low, except you can craft them. Okay, so let's take a look at this one right here. It's got 14 move speed and impairment reduction. This is not good enough for me to use, but fortunately I don't have to. I can re-roll set charm. So what this does, there's 5 of them. So it matches the symbol. Right now it's this symbol right here, which means it would replace this one right here, right? Because you have to have 1 of each symbol. You can't have 2 of the same symbol. If we look at the name, it's called Linta of the Nameless. This one is called Linta of the Nameless, right? The set is of the Nameless. This is Mlor of the Nameless. Okay, so that symbol is important because, for instance, this is already +3. So I don't want to roll a Mlor of the Nameless because I've already got a good Mlor, but I have a bad Phoba of the Nameless. Okay, so I'd be looking for a replacement of this. So if I see it, this symbol and good stats, I'll be really excited. So what we do is we transmute it. And when we transmute this with the reroll, it's going to stay this set, but it could be any of these 5 and the stats will change. So there we go. Oh, look at that. It hit the one I wanted, but did we get good stats? Wow, actually we did, just not for the build that I'm running right now. But I'm going to hold on to this because I might want to put together a version of this build that is using occult skills, because it looks like occult skills are performing really well this patch. So we just converted a garbage charm into a godly charm in a single click. How big is that? Okay. So that's why this material right here, the infused HORADRIC resin that you get from salvaging the charms and the seals that you're not using at the Occultist. So that's why you salvage them. So you can come here. When you get the set that you want, you can keep re-rolling it until you get a good version of that set. So when you see people running around with really good seals and charms, that's probably how they got them. Okay, so that's everything you need to know about seals and charms. The seal is the thing in the middle. The charms are around the outside. Ideally, you're running a 3 or a 5 piece set in here with plus tier skills. Those are 2 stats that will always feel really good in here. Okay, so the last thing that you can do with the Occultist here is enchant your items. Now, this is the one that you will use very often, especially earlier on, and particularly when the cube version of this is not desirable. So for example, if you just want to change one stat real quick, and maybe it's not an endgame item, you don't want to devote a bunch of important resources to it, you can come here, toss it in here, and you can choose which one you want to reroll. Now, when you do that, it could land on any of these affixes. So it can be very difficult to get the stat that you want this way. So that's why you might use the cube instead, right? Like on this item, we could say, man, I really don't like that lightning resistance. But now the problem is the stat on there that we do like is the resist all elements. And whatever we do, we don't want to lose that. So it would be pretty dangerous to click remove affix and then toss in the resistances one, right? Because now there's a 50% chance it takes the wrong one. And what if this was like a 2 GA item or 3 GA item and we didn't want to risk that? So this would be a great time to use the Occultist. Come here and then we just re-roll the stat that we don't want. This lightning resistance, let's say we like the max life, we like the willpower, we like the resist all, but this lightning resist, we would really rather it be armor. So then we could just do this. Now, the downside of this is, like we said, it could be really hard to get the thing that you want. And this has become very expensive now. So each time you don't get the thing you want, it's going to cost more. So right now it's at 1.7 million. We try again. We still didn't get it. Now it's 2.6. Okay. It's eating up 25 of our forgotten souls every time as well. Okay. So we try again. Oh, great. We got the armor that we wanted. Okay. There we go. So this is a case of using enchanting and getting the result that you wanted. Now you would be able to go and temper on a stat to this thing. Maybe we wanted to add a defensive stat to it, like more max life because we want more life. Life is always a good choice if you're just not sure. Plus, you can change it later. It's very cheap, right? So we could just temper this life on there. Now it's got that extra life on it. Perfect. And we could always change that to a different stat later. We can change it all the way until we masterwork it. So that's everything you can do at the Occultist. And then over here to the left of the Occultist, you've got the Jeweler. The Jeweler has a few very basic tasks that you can do. You can salvage gems that you find. So you'll find a bunch of junk gems, particularly early in the game, and you can salvage them. And the main thing to be aware of is that gems in this game do not work the way they did in Diablo 3. Instead, whenever you salvage gems, you get a salvaged material under your materials tab here. Click on the materials tab in the top and then scroll down and you've got all of the fragments of the different gems. So when you salvage a gem, if you salvage, for instance, this diamond, you would get diamond fragments and it would just go into this pile. And then you go to craft gem section and let's say you wanted to make a diamond, come here, and then you use those fragments to make whichever version you want. So if we hover over this one right here, it says the cost is 1 million. And for some reason, it doesn't tell you how many you need until you right click on it. This is the weirdest UI decision ever. You lock this behind here, right click it, and now it tells you how many you need. You need 10,000. I have 27,000, so I could make this. Now this one right here, we hover over this, it says I need 100,000, but I only have 27,000, so I can't make this yet. That's why there's a 0 here. I could make 0 of these, I could make 2 of these, 27 of these, right? So the step up is rather big, and then from 100,000 to craft a royal, we need 1 million diamond fragments. So it's like tenfold more each time. Fortunately, or unfortunately, it's real simple and real easy to know what to do with your gems in this game. Okay, I'm gonna give you an answer that works for every single build always. What you're gonna do on the helmet is you'll put 2 different runes. On the body, you'll put 2 different runes. And you're going to set up whatever rune combination you want there. We'll talk about runes soon, and then I can dive into what might make sense for you. But as far as gems go, on the rest of your armor, you would put your main stat. This is a willpower character. So we come in here to the gems. We look for the one that gives us willpower, which happens to be sapphire. And it tells us there, if you put this in armor, you get willpower. And then we just slap some willpower gems into our armor. For our weapon, it's whatever damage type you're doing. If you're doing fire damage, then you put rubies, the 2 biggest rubies you can. And this makes a massive difference for your damage. So when you find a socketed weapon, put gems in it as soon as you can. Just be careful not to waste the material that you need that adds sockets to gear. And then for your jewelry, you put whatever resistance you need. So if your poison resistance is really low, then you can put an emerald. If your lightning resistance is really low, then you can put a topaz. To know which of your resistances are falling way behind, just click stats, scroll down, and here you can see how much of each one you have. So look, my shadow resistance is way lower than everything else. So what I could potentially do is craft a royal amethyst. This would give me 1,750 shadow resistance, which would almost double my shadow resistance and close the deficit between some of my other resistances. Now, unfortunately for my character, I'm low on all three of these. So if I take one of these out, now that one will be down near 2,000. But that's essentially what you use these three slots for, is to fill in the resistances that are low, because that is a massive number, that number that you can get here. If all of your resistances are pretty well balanced, then you can just put diamonds. Diamonds are fantastic. It adds to all resistances. When you put a gem in here, let's say you put one in and then you realize you put the wrong thing in or you wanted to change it, no problem. Just click the unsocket tab, unsocket, and then you click on it and boom. Now that gem went into your gems tab in your inventory, and now you can put a different one in there. Now, if you want to add sockets to an item, let's say you find a good item and you want to add sockets, like this helmet right here. Now, the thing about this is you do not want to do this willy-nilly, because you need scattered prisms to add a socket to an item like this. If you're ever getting low on a material, just hover over it and it tells you where you get it. Frequently found in torment difficulties from world bosses and dark citadels. So this is one where you want to run world bosses when you see them pop up. Like right now, it says there's a world boss spawning in 58 minutes. So I would want to go there and do that world boss. Basically, anytime you see a world boss spawning, world bosses spawn every 3.5 hours or so. So when you see one spawn, always try to do it. You get some really rare and valuable materials from there. One of those is for socketing your equipment. You can also find it in other places. It doesn't only come from there, but that's one of the most reliable ways to get it. All that to say, don't just socket anything, socket things that you want to wear for a long time, because you don't get a ton of these scattered prisms. Next thing you can do here is rune crafting. Now, runes are really important because you can use runes to craft mythic uniques, okay? So that's why the runes that you're finding are really important, even the blue ones, because you can upgrade blue into rare, and you can upgrade rare into legendary, and then you can use those runes to craft ancestral mythic unique items. So if we hover over this Harlequin crest here, for example, and we look at it, we right click on it to pull up this menu, and it tells us that we need 6 eoms, 6 locks, and 6 says. So the eom is a legendary rune. We need 6 of those, and then the lack and the set are rare runes, right? And we need all of those. We can come here with 2 resplendent sparks and we can craft a ancestral mythic unique item. And the best part about this is you're guaranteed to get the mythic unique that you decide to craft. So this is a really powerful way to get like Ring of the Starless Skies, for example, if you don't have it yet. So that's under rune crafting. There's a few other notable recipes in here. You can reforge legendary runes. So you could come here and let's say you had a bunch of legendary runes that you didn't need for your recipe and you wanted to gamble. You could change 3 legendary ohms into a random legendary rune. It'll be random, so you'll get a different rune, but it'll still be legendary. You can do the same thing with the rare runes down here. If you've got way too many of one and you're hoping to get a different one, this is one way to do that in there. Okay, let's talk about how the runes function in our gear. So this back rune right here, it says that we'll gain 50 offering every time we travel 5 meters. The offering is just a resource, like your mana. You'll pair 1 ritual rune with 1 invocation rune. So the ritual is the thing you do, and then the invocation rune is the thing that happens when you have enough offering or enough of this resource to make it happen. So every time we travel 5 meters, we get 50 offering, and then if we pair that with Yom, it says that when we get to 500 offering, it's going to invoke the Druid's Petrify skill, stunning enemies and restoring our primary resource. So the top one is kind of your resource generator, and then the bottom one is your resource spender, and it tells you how much is being generated. So that gives you an idea of how long it's going to take before you're able to use this. So a really popular combination would be Sir K. This says that every time we cast 5 skills, we'll become exhausted for 3 seconds, and it'll invoke the Druid's Earthen Bulwark skill for 3 seconds, granting yourself a massive barrier. So basically, every time you cast 5 abilities, and you can see there, it says you generate 300 and it costs 300. So this works perfectly. Every time you cast 5 abilities, you're going to get 300 offering, and then that's instantly going to proc the Earthen Bulwark to give you a massive barrier. So in practice, that looks like this. We'll cast 5 abilities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. An earthen bulwark. And this is a massive shield. It's a 10,000 HP barrier. It's a percentage of your health. That's a massive barrier, right? That is huge for keeping your character alive, which is why it's an incredibly popular combination. So you want to look for a ritual rune that you're going to be able to proc very often. This one says cast a non-channeled core skill. If you're not casting a lot of non-channeled core skills, you wouldn't want to use this because it's going to take forever, especially when you're only getting 25 offering a pop. That's going to take too long to generate. So you want to look for the ones that are going to generate really quickly for you, and then pair them with a really useful invocation rune that's making something happen that's really useful to your character. Definitely mix and match and try them out. You can put them in and take them out of your gear as much as you want to. Once you put the rune in there, you can pull it out at the jeweler and swap in a new one until you find a combination that feels right for you. Then you've got jewelry crafting. Now, the most important thing that you can do here is, let's say you needed more ruby fragments. Well, you could give up other ones to get ruby. So you give up a total of 300 of these, but you'll get 200 of these. So it's a slight loss, but you're converting 3 that you hopefully don't need, or 3 that you don't need as much as the one that you do need. Do that. And there, now we got ruby fragments times 200. And so you could do massive piles of that to hopefully be able to craft the gem that you're looking to craft, if you've got loads of these that you're just never using. Then you've got jewelry crafting down here. If you want to, you can craft a cache that contains legendary jewelry. This can be good if you're trying to find the codex powers that you don't already have, or better versions of the ones that you do have. You can kind of try to use some materials here to go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's everything you can do at the jeweler. Now let's talk about the HORADRIC cube. This is a big one. So the cube. You've got loads of recipes in here, but don't worry. It's actually way simpler than it looks at first glance, because all of these at the bottom, that's just rune crafting. It's literally just, here's how you make this legendary rune. And it's a pretty awful recipe too. I mean, it's a really expensive way to get those. So if you're using that recipe, you're kind of in dire straits, but we'll talk about that later. So everything in the rune crafting section, we can ignore for a second, which just leaves this section here, and then item transmutation here. So let's do this one section at a time. Add affix. We touched on this earlier. So we could put a white item in here if we wanted. This is an ancestral gloves. This item is potentially the best quadruple GA item in the game. It could be. It very well could be from crafting right now. If I add affix, I could get a greater affix roll. And then if I add another one, it could be another greater affix roll. So here we go. This will bind it to your account. That's the only thing you need to know when you're crafting. Okay, fine. There we go. Okay, we didn't get our godly GA roll, unfortunately. So from here, we have 2 options. We could just keep adding affixes, or we could remove this one. So let's go ahead and remove it because we hated that stat. Now add again. Okay, 220 life regen. That's actually somehow worse than the last one. So we remove it. Add affix. Okay, we got maximum life. Let's say we were happy with that. These are gloves, so most likely I wouldn't want life on my gloves because your gloves are an offensive position. These can get offensive stats that the rest of your defensive gear cannot. So usually your gloves, we have mine right here. It's got crit strike, crit damage, all res, cooldown reduction, right? A lot of offensive stats, and then all resistances because we just really need resistances in this game. Now that we know we want offensive stats, what if we don't do it like this? So we'll remove that, right? And we'll come here to add affix, and then we'll go to our consumables, and we know we want offensive stats because it's really unlikely we're going to get what we want without that. So we put this in here. Now when we add an affix, we're going to get an offensive stat. Awesome. So let's see what we get. Willpower. Not a bad stat. Your main stat is actually a really powerful multiplier for your damage. All your damage gets multiplied by your main stat. So not a horrible stat. And if we wanted to, we could remove this and try again. We could take that out because there's only one stat. So it only has one stat we would want to remove. Put it back in. Try again. Damage over time multiplier. Rip. I'm not doing damage over time. So we remove that. Add an offensive stat again. So now we've got crit chance. So let's say we want another offensive stat, right? Because this is an offensive piece of gear. So transmute. Now we got the 40% damage over time multiplier. Now the only problem with this, since they're both offensive stats, we have no way to reliably get that stat off. We might accidentally remove the critical strike chance that we wanted. So what we could do is we could transmute again. We got vulnerable damage multiplier, which is actually good. And then we could try again. And we got the willpower. One thing we could have done is we could have done a focus reroll when we had a 50-50 chance, and we could have said, change it to one of the same category. So we could use this. It's going to change one of these affixes to one of the same category. We have to provide a tuning prism for this because we were telling it which category we're trying to replace. And we go transmute. Oh, nice. So we got rid of the willpower and we got attack speed. That's actually not a bad outcome. So let's say you loved 3 out of the 4 stats on this thing. That's fine, because you know what that means? You can go to the Occultist and you can just enchant the damage over time multiplier until you get the stat you want. So if you have 3 out of 4 here, that's good. Now, we didn't get lucky. None of these rolled greater affixes. So this item would have been a solid craft until we got to about Torment 9 or 10 when we started seeing greater affix items. And then now an item like this without any GAs is a lot less exciting. So that's how you use add affix, focus reroll, and remove affix. So if we did chaotic reroll, it would change a random affix to one of another category. So let's just throw a random item in here. We've got this ring with willpower, max life, crit damage, and then shadow resistance. And then we could do a chaotic reroll, and it's just gonna change one of these to a different category. And we could help tell it, let's say we wanted to get rid of shadow resistance and change it to something more offensive. We could go here, put the resistance one in there, and it's going to do a chaotic reroll now, which means it's going to change that shadow resistance into something else. Go. So shadow resistance got changed to lucky hit chance. There you go. So really powerful, and actually you can control the outcome a lot. So because you can control the outcome of this so well, it's actually a very powerful crafting system. The next one is Transfigure. This one can add a really amazing stat to the item. However, there's a high chance that you can never alter it again after that. So you want to make sure you are done crafting this item. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and craft this Air of Perdition real quick. So this is a very offensive helmet, so I need some HP on it. So we'd go ahead and put life. We're going to re-roll this until we get a really good roll because this is a mythic. I also want to make sure I add my sockets to it before I do this. All right, now we masterwork it. All right, so once you've got the item fully crafted that you want to toss in here, go ahead and do that. Now we're going to transfigure. So we can use a tuning prism to try and make sure we get the stat that we want out of this. So let's say this one is loaded with offensive stats here. So we're a little worried about our survivability. And we got 10% total armor, which is actually not a bad roll at all. So there we go. And you can see it's got that little icon. It says transfigured, and down there it says 10.4% total armor. So that's how the transfigure option works here. It adds a random stat. There's a really wide array of options. And as you saw me do there, we can use the entropic tuning prism to remove the riskiest, but also the most powerful outcome. And if we scroll down on this item, we can see down there at the bottom, it says unmodifiable. So this item can no longer be edited. It is what it is forever. All right, next we have unique power reroll. So let's say that you found a unique item that you wanted to use in your build, and it was almost perfect. You know, let's say all the stats on this ring were amazing, and I loved all the stats except Profane Sentinel down there is only doing 266, but it's telling us it could have gone up to 270%. And we really wanted that 270 on this item because it's perfect in every other way. So before we go ahead and transfigure it and make it uneditable, we could re-roll that unique power and try to get that 270%. Now, the thing is, be careful because this uses attuned primordial dust. You don't have a lot of these. These are really rare compared to other things that you get in this game. So be choosy about when you decide to re-roll a unique like this. Okay, we're all done with this section here. Now let's go to the item transmutation section here. First up is 3-to-1. We could put 3 of any item. So like, let's say we had 3 of these, 1, 2, 3. You can put 3 of these in there and it's going to convert it into a new 1 of these. So you'll lose 3, you'll get 1, and that new 1 will be different than these 3. So it's a way to take a chance at getting a better version of something if you're getting lots of copies of it and you want to try to get a better one. So all of these are not great. They're all 5 slot, which is now useless because we've got a 6 slot, right? So we could transmute this and it'll give us 1 new one instead. There we go. We got a 5 slot charm again. So it's still useless to us. Now we only have 1 instead of 3. The downside of this is you lose 2 copies of whatever it was. And so if it's something like seals, where what you would probably rather do is come to the occultist and salvage them, and then you could come here and then use that salvage material to re-roll charms until you get a good version of a charm. So be careful about what you try to 3-for-1. Sometimes it might be worth it, and then sometimes it's better to salvage those items because the crafting material you get out of them is much more useful than the very low probability that you manage to get an upgrade this way. Then we've got recycle uniques. You can transmute 3 of the same unique equipment, items, or charms into a new version of that unique. So the way uniques work is different now. If we look at a unique here, this one has willpower, max life, armor, and hellfire skills. This one has willpower, movement speed, fortify, and physical resistance. So the same unique can have completely different stats. The only thing that's staying the same is the unique stat at the bottom there. For this one, it's the Abodian deals X% increased damage, right? They all have some variant of that, but all the other stats are different. So let's say we hated all of the stats. We keep getting the item we want, but they always come with bad stats. Well, you could put them in here and you could recycle it. And now we get a new one with hopefully better stats. Next, we have upgrade to unique. The way this one works is you can upgrade a white item to a unique. So you've got a couple of options. You can either find a white item. Ideally, it's going to be ancestral because you want 900 item power, right? You do not want to make a unique that's 850. You're going to look for a white item that's ancestral, or you could find a yellow ancestral like this one here, and you could just remove the stats from it at the cube until it was white. And then you could upgrade that to unique. So let's go ahead and come here to the cube, put this amulet in here, upgrade to unique. It's going to use some of this raw primordial dust, which we have loads of, and it's going to use some enhanced primordial dust, which we've only got 15 of. So use it, and it's going to convert that into a unique. Hey, it even turned it into a 4GA unique. Holy cow. That's quite the roll right there on an item I wasn't even trying for. You know, it's too bad I wasted it on this thing, but there you go. So the outcome could potentially be really fantastic if you get lucky. So there we go. We'll save that one for later. I can't believe that just rolled a 4GA. That's hilarious. Next, we have upgrade to legendary. Works exactly the same way, except you need to put a rare item in there. So we could put these rare gloves in there. We could upgrade it and they would then become a legendary. There we go. Pick the legendary. Now we could change that stat. I think the only reason you would do this is to fish for legendary powers that you don't have, or upgrades on a legendary power that you don't have, because this is a really inefficient way to get like a legendary upgrade. And you wouldn't craft an item and then upgrade it to legendary that way because it's just giving you a random stat. So that's not one you're really going to use very often. Reroll set charm. We touched on this earlier. You can put a charm in here. Let's say we put this one in because the stats are awful. We wanted better stats. Reroll it. Now it gave us movement speed and lucky hit. We could try again. Lightning resist, all stats right. And you would do this until you got basically +3 to all your skills or +2 to your skills that you're using. Or ideally, move speed and +2 to skills would be really nice. Next, we have craft a unique charm. Now, this is a really cool one. Now, the way this one works is you put 3 charms that you don't want in here. So you'd put these 3 in, and along with the ancestral unique that you wanted to take the power of. Okay. So let's say we wanted this, your demonology skills deal 0.63 increased damage per wrath. Let's say we wanted a charm like one of these that did that, right? That way we don't even have to wear the item. We could just slot it on our charms page here, put it right in this slot, take this one out, and we could have another unique multiplier in this position instead of a simple +3 to demonology skills. That would be really powerful. So you would go ahead and take that and hit transmute, and you would end up with something like one of these where you have a unique charm that you can then put in here. Next, we have amalgamation. Amalgamation is really important. You're going to use this a lot, especially when it comes to upgrading things. So it combines 5 of something and makes a better version of it. So we've got 5 of these lesser tributes of harmony. This is blue. If I transmute, it took those 5 and gave me a rare tribute of harmony right here. So you can combine 5 of something to get an upgraded version. And if we had 5 tributes of harmony, we could upgrade that to a legendary one. And that way you can consolidate the number of runs you have to run to get these really good rewards by using the upgraded versions of them. But more importantly, or at least just as importantly, is your runes. You can upgrade 5 runes. So we could put 5 of the Prid rune in here, and it would give us a random rare rune. And then we could put 5 rare runes in here, and it doesn't have to be the same 5. We could just scrape together any 5 rare runes we wanted, and it would give us a random legendary rune. And then this is part of how you would go about getting the runes that you need in order to craft your mythic unique here. So you see how it's all intertwined. You use the cube to get the runes, then you use the runes to craft the mythic item, right? Everything is so intertwined. They did a really good job with that here. That's the amalgamation system. It combines 5 of them to get a higher tier version of it. And then, like I said, the last section here, which I said earlier, you can ignore this because it's basically just rune crafting. So if you want the back rune, then you're going to use 1 prid, 5 of any rare runes, and 5 legendary runes. So once you have loads of legendary runes that you're not using and loads of rare runes, then this is a useful way to get the runes you need. However, to create a mythic over there, you're going to need 6 of these runes. So that means if I needed 6 jaws, I would have to sacrifice 30 legendary runes to get those 6 jaws. So you can see how you'll chew through your runes really fast if you're using these to get the runes you need. So this is kind of like a desperation kind of moment where you're like, oh, I need 1 more jaw, I need 2 more jaw, whatever it is. You come here, you craft 2, you sacrifice 10 or 15 of your unique runes, and you continue about your day. But that's what all of these are. So there you go. Now you understand absolutely every recipe in the HORADRIC cube. None of them are complicated. All of them are useful. Once someone explains them to you, they all make perfect sense and they're really easy to use. And you absolutely should be using these. If you're not using them, you're leaving so much power on the table. Okay, so I think that covers everything for crafting. I think we talked about all the different crafting benches here. Yeah. Okay, so next up, let's dive into the menus really quick because there's some really important stuff in here. First up, the seasonal menu. This is kind of confusing when you first start playing the game, and it's really important because there are so many good rewards in here that are going to progress your character so much faster. Not only that, I forgot to collect it for a few levels. So I've just been playing and I went like 1, 2, 3, 4 levels without collecting my rewards in here. And then I just collected them all, opened them, and I got like 40 Paragon points. There is a ton of experience packed into these too. So 40 levels worth. So don't forget to do these. It's going to help you level up faster. It's also going to give you essential items like resplendent sparks by doing these. Some really, really powerful rewards. So how do you do them? Well, when you open it up by pressing U on PC, I'm not sure what this button is going to be on console, but when you open the menu system here, you can see it at the top and then you can press that button that it shows you right below it. And what you want to do is climb the ranks, just like you want to climb the different difficulties, right? Over at the difficulty shrine over here. So you want to climb these difficulty levels, but you also want to be climbing these ranks. So it's 2 different progression paths that are going to lead you to a lot better loot. So you'll start out with rank 1 and you'll get simple tasks like complete world events in Scovos, or while the swell, it says defeat elite or champion monsters in Scovos 50. So you want to kill 50 elites. Simple, right? When you've completed enough of these, you'll be able to claim this reward. You don't have to do all of them to progress. You just have to complete enough of them. And you'll be able to claim this reward right here, which includes things like skill points, titles, caches, experience tomes, and smoldering ashes, which you're going to use down here. We'll talk about that in a second. Now you'll notice I can't go to this one right here. I can see, oh my gosh, there's 3 resplendent sparks. I really want to get these along with all these other rewards that are here, right? But how do I get to this? Well, if I click on the preceding rank, it tells me defeat the Echo of Mephisto in Torment 10 to earn rewards and unlock rank 9. Okay, so then I click view on map. It tells me, oh, it's right there. The reason this has a lock on it is because we're not in a high enough difficulty level. We need to change the difficulty here, which we are conveniently standing next to for this demonstration. Change the difficulty to Torment 10. Now, when we view this on the map, there it is. We could teleport here and run in there and fight the boss. It also tells us required items. We're going to need a Crux of the False Prophet to open the chest that we get after killing this boss. This boss has a chance to drop mythic seals and mythic unique items. So huge rewards in there once you kill that boss. When you're in the earlier ranks, it's going to be the same exact thing, but lower level ones. So you're going to go here, monster level 30s, difficulty hard. So you kill that dungeon on hard difficulty. So you have to change it to hard difficulty right here. Change it to hard, confirm. After you do that, then view it on the map and then go to it right there. So if we click there, we would travel there, we could defeat it. And then by doing that, we would unlock the next tier and so on. So then you'd complete some of these tasks, then you'd kill this dungeon, and then you progress to the next tier, complete some tasks, kill the dungeon, go to the next tier. And sometimes that'll reward you with smoldering ashes. So when you get those, you can come in here and you can choose to upgrade these in whatever order that you want. Depends on what activity you like doing and what materials you need the most at the time. You can spend these points in here. Now, one of the events that spawns in this game is world bosses. Whenever you see one counting down, make sure to head to that location. Just teleport to the nearest waypoint, run to the boss, it'll spawn. There'll usually be loads of people there. And then you can try and take it down with them. If the boss dies, you can collect your loot. And the most important thing that gave us is this mythic tribute of armaments, which we can use to get loads of mythic items from the Undercity. Huge! Can't explain how powerful that is. So with any luck at all, if we use this in combination with this Undercity tree right here, we're going to get somewhere between 2 and 4 mythic items on that run. Next, we have the reliquary section. The main thing to know here is that you're going to be earning an in-game currency, this one right here. You'll be earning this. It caps out at 99, so you have to spend it or it goes to waste. So spend it. And probably the most interesting thing you can buy with this is you can buy cash shop currency. These two right here. So if this one was 100 platinum, this one was another 100 platinum. So that gave us 200 platinum out of the 5,400 that we currently have. And the reason that's probably the most useful thing to get out of here is because, well, here's the cosmetic that you can get with this currency. And here's the cosmetics you can get with this currency. This to this. And you can see why it's worth trading in some for the cash shop currency. Now, you do cap out at 99, so feel free to spend as much of it in this section as you want to. There's no bad choice, really. The other sections here, you have to buy the battle pass. You can unlock it either through the premium battle pass, the deluxe battle pass, or just using some of the cash shop currency up here. Then we've got the map. The map has some really, really important information on it. So let's talk about how this thing works. You've got the different tabs right here for different quests. The most important one to be aware of, besides the main quest, this gold one, is the purple quest that you're going to get. So you'll have a class ascendancy quest, or 2 of them that you need to do by the time you hit around 30. So if you're 30 and you haven't done that yet, make sure you take some time to come in here and knock out your class ascendancy quest. This is going to unlock this section right here. You'll have a tab on your character screen right here, and it takes you to something that looks like this. If you are a warlock, this will look completely different if you're a druid or a paladin or a barbarian, right? This screen looks different for each one, but they all have some version of the screen where you get to make upgrade choices to your character that are specific to your class. And the only way you have access to this is if you've done the associated quest that unlocks it. So purple quests are really important. Those are what are going to unlock all sorts of endgame activities in this game, as well as bartering, you can see here. And then you've got side quests. Side quests in this game are 1000% optional. And if you happen to do some, that's fine. If you don't do them, it's completely fine. They didn't tuck any like must-have rewards into the side quests. So do them if you enjoy them. And if you're not much of a quester, then completely ignore them. You'll be okay. If you want the game to lead you to a quest location, just go ahead and click on it. Now, when you're in game, it will lead you to that. You'll see a red leading you to that location. And if you've turned on the settings in game, you'll see white dots leading you and an arrow. And I'll show you how to turn this on in a moment when we go into game settings that you should absolutely change, because there's actually some really solid in-game settings that are worth changing and turning on and things like that. Next thing on this screen, we talked about it. You've got the Whispers of the Dead meter down here. You've got your war plans over here where you can just teleport to the next one over and over until it's done. You've got legions that pop up. You can go there and do those for some nice rewards. If you hover over it, you can collapse the quest menu and open up a filter so you can turn things on and off to kind of clean up and declutter this map. If there's certain things on here that are cluttering up the map, you don't want to see them anymore, you can just turn them off, like the altars and the tenants. These used to be really important in the game. Now, not so much. You can turn those off. So that's everything in the map. Then we've got collections. This is just where you can come and you can see all of your codex of power. You see which ones you have, which ones you don't have, you know, what % of completion you're at right now. You can see which tempering recipes you have and don't have. But let's go ahead and take a look at this purple quest right here, because this one is a relatively important one. So let's go ahead and head to this location. This is where we get mercenaries in this game. So the way this works is you've got 4 different mercenaries you can choose from. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got like your little magey casty boy, you've got a tanky boy, you've got like a melee fighter, and then you've got kind of a bow and arrow user here, right? You can pick the one that you want to bring around with you. This guy's really nice as a kind of keeping you alive boy. Anytime you are about to die, he'll taunt everything away from you. He also can throw you a healing potion when you get low and you haven't used yours yet. So he'll save your life. And then the other ones kind of have some nice debuffs. You can use them to get the vulnerable debuff, things like that. All right, let's talk to Freyra here. Now, this is the bartering system. So when you hire these guys, you can click on them and you can hire the mercenary, or you can click on them and you can enlist them as a reinforcement. And when they're with you while you're killing things, they'll proceed to level up. So if we go to the mercenary menu here, and we click on one of these guys right here, and we can see this character is current rank 8. So we're leveling up, we're getting all these rewards here. And some of this is the pale marks, that's the bartering currency, which we then can come here and use to buy items here. So let's say we wanted a material cache, right? That's going to be potentially useful, this material cache. So we got that from there. Open that up. Cool. Some crafting materials. What else can we get in here? There's a defensive aspect cache. This could be useful if you are coming here earlier in your playthrough and you're still missing loads of defensive aspects. You could buy this to help collect them all and to get upgrades of the ones you do have. The more that you have leveled each of these guys up, the more options you have. So right now we can only see this many, but when we grab this legendary bartering upgrade right here, click, we come here again. Now look, we've got a full screen of them, right? It added more. And we got an augmentation cache. Cool, we'll buy that. Ooh, volatile primordial dust, some good stuff in there. Perfect. This can be a good way to get either geared, like you can actually get some solid items in here. We'll go ahead and buy this one. Boss summoning cache. Let's see. Yeah, it did. It gave us a LAIR boss key. Nice. And we could do a restock, right? Let's say we don't want to see any more of this. Boom, we restock. Now we've got more options, some legendary items, even got an ancestral item here, as well as another material cache. Okay, we could take that, right? Because I'm at the point where it's unlikely I'm going to find an upgrade in here, but I absolutely am going to be crafting a lot more still, so I can still use those. And then we've got 2,700 Pel marks left, costs 100 to restock, or we could just wait and it'll restock on its own. So this is going to restock every day. You'll be able to use one free restock every single day. So we've got this guy hired right now. Come in here to our mercenaries menu, hired mercenary, and we can see his skill tree. So you can come in here and as you level him up, you'll get points you can spend in here. And I'm using this guy for an extra source of vulnerable, for instance, with this passive down here. It doesn't go off very often. It's not the most reliable source of vulnerable, but hey, it's there. It's something that he could do that is kind of helpful. Plus, it's really nice to just make sure you get all of them up to level 10. So you get all of your caches and all of your pale marks. And once you have got them to level 10, they will keep on leveling up infinitely. And every time they level up after that, they're going to give you more Pel marks to spend here to barter with. So this is how the hired mercenary works. And then the reinforcement is a little bit different. As you level them up, you'll unlock more skills that you can use. So you can pick one and then you pick your skill, your abilities will all show up here. And then whenever you use these, their ability will trigger. So you pick which one of your abilities triggers their ability, and you can kind of create a nice combo that way where every time I use this, I'm going to need help. That's a good skill to trigger it too, that kind of thing. The mercenaries aren't massively game changing. The most important thing is to level them up and unlock all the slots here so that you can shop, once a day. Now, sometimes you are going to be struggling in this game, and it's not going to be because you don't have enough damage. It's going to be because your toughness is not high enough. And you'll know this is the case because you up the difficulty, you walk into a group of mobs, and you instantly die. You get one shot. Okay, the problem is no longer your damage. The problem is now your survivability, and it's time to start looking for items that are going to help you address that. Usually the easiest ways to address that are to get items that are giving you life, armor, or resistances. Those 3 stats on any of your items is going to help a lot. And remember that you can always, in a pinch, temper those stats onto your gear. So for instance, this chest piece right here, I could put on anything I want onto it. Like maybe I want to put life. So we re-roll that. There we go. And now my toughness is up to 836. And remember that your toughness while you're standing in town is not your toughness while you're on the battlefield. A lot of your toughness is going to be procced by using certain abilities or some of your legendary aspects. And remember, you can always use a legendary aspect. For instance, right here, this one says, while wielding a 2-handed weapon, I gain 32% damage reduction. That's massive damage reduction from a single aspect. So don't be afraid to use some defensive aspects to fix your squishiness. The only problem with some of these is they don't show up on your toughness sheet. So there isn't one toughness number I can point at and say, this is what you need, because not all of this shows up in these stats right here. And then for stats, they do different things on different classes. So on the Warlock, for example, strength increases your crit chance. Yeah, you probably didn't expect that, but it does. It also increases your armor. So that's just something that strength does. It's increasing your crit chance, not by a lot, but it does increase it. So when you get strength on an item for some reason, hey, it's not completely useless. Intelligence on the warlock is increasing our resource generation by 1.7% and increasing our resistances to all elements by 135. Now, the lower stat there seems to be universal, while the top one changes with the class. Since I'm a warlock, willpower is our main stat, this one's going to increase our skill damage. So if you're not sure what stat you should be looking for your class, just look for the one that says increases skill damage. That's your main stat. Then we've got dexterity. This one's going to be increasing our dodge chance by 1.1% because we don't have a lot of it. So there you go. That's what these stats do right here. And their effects can differ for different classes. Above that, we've got stats and materials. This is a really useful section to come into. So you can see active effects here that you have on your character. These are going to be coming from your runes, from your items. So if you're ever curious about what you've got going on here, then you can also come down. You can see all of your currency that you've got so far. If you're ever curious how much of any given currency that you have or what you might be capped on. So for instance, we're capped on marks of Ruin. These are just for resetting this board. Let's say I got a board here, a war plan that I really didn't like. I could click new plan and I could use one of those three to get a new board. Then you can see your core stats here. You can see your armor and resistance values. Again, this is really important so you can spot, oh man, my shadow resistance is at 1900. What this means on a character like this is if you run into an enemy that does shadow damage, you're just going to pop. And you're going to wonder, man, my toughness isn't high enough. It's not actually your toughness. It's just your shadow resistance is way lower than everything else. So glance in here every once in a while and just make sure one of your resistance didn't fall way behind. Because if it did, that's going to be enough to kill you instantly when you happen to run into one mob. So if your lightning resistance is really low and a mob throws lightning damage on the ground, you're just going to die. It's going to feel bad. And well, now you know why. Then we've got offensive stats. This is really important to pay attention to. For instance, you don't want a ton of crit damage if you don't have any crit chance. And if you do have a ton of crit damage, like 913%, then you want to make sure that your crit chance is very high so that you're taking advantage of that. Vulnerable damage is a really powerful multiplier in this game. So it is important to have a source of vulnerable damage somewhere and then make sure you get some vulnerable damage multipliers on some of your gear somewhere or in your Paragon board. Then you can see your damage multipliers here, as well as some defensive stats and your utility. Next, at the top, all the way at the top, if you ever need to see how much of any materials you have, crafting materials, you can come in here and you can see, all the different crafting materials you have. Loads of Scroll of Restoration. By the way, you can use this on the blacksmith to restore 1 tempering charge on an item. So if you want, you can knock it back after masterworking it so that you can kind of change something on the item again. What we didn't really talk about yet is the skill tree in the Paragon board, so let's cover those. The skill tree has been changed. You no longer have to invest points into a basic skill. You can just skip them all together and head to the skills that you're going to be using. So it's important to pick one of your critical modifiers here and one of these 2 passives. So you get 3 choices per skill. So you'll pick your damage skill, you'll level it up. You can put 15 points in manually. So this skill is 32 out of 15, which means I put 15 points into it. And then I also have another 17 points that are leveling it up. If we hover over the skill, it has the following tags: Core, Demonology, Hellfire, Greater Demon, Summon, or Channeled. So I can get plus to any of those things or damage modifiers for any of those things, and it's going to affect this skill. So if I find plus Hellfire damage, it's going to work on the skill. If I find plus Demonology skills, it'll work on this skill. Those tags at the top are really important to take note of for whatever skills you're using. That's going to determine what stats you're looking for on your gear. It's also going to determine which skills you use because you want all of your skills to have some overlap in some way, right? Where if all of your skills have different tags, you won't be able to get one stat that levels them all up. So all of the skills on this build are doing Hellfire damage. So if I get plus Hellfire skills, it levels all of my skills that I'm using up. If I get plus Demonology skills, it levels all of my skills that I'm using for damage. So that's really important to kind of keep track of, is those tags. And it's also what's going to determine which variant of skills you take. So sometimes you're going to want to take the version of the skill that turns it into the tag that you're using everywhere else. So this skill was initially an Archfiend ability. It was not Hellfire, but then when I grab this variant, it turns it into a Hellfire ability, adds the Hellfire tag, and now all of my Hellfire multipliers and additives are working on this skill as well, right? So that's how you want to use your skill tree. That's how you want to think about it. You just want to think about those tags and use those, and make sure all your damage abilities have some overlapping tag that you can use to multiply all of them at the same time. So Paragon board is probably the most confusing thing in this game for new players. They look at it and they go, how am I supposed to possibly know what I'm supposed to do here? Don't worry, it's actually so simple. It looks so complicated, but it's not. So let's talk about the Paragon board. First, let me refund all. Okay. So we've got a blank Paragon board. This is what you're going to start with right here. First thing you're going to want to do is make your way to this glyph socket right here. Really, if you grab this node, these multipliers early on are really powerful. 10% damage, 20% damage, 5% damage. Those are actually really impactful early on. Later in the game, not nearly as much so, because you have so many multipliers in this bucket. And without getting into the math, it's hard to explain why, but later on, these become a lot less important, but early on, they are really helpful. The ones that are really helpful are going to be the legendary nodes, but we'll talk about that in a second. So you're going to work your way up to this. So you'll get points. You'll grab that damage multiplier. Also, the 4% life is huge. And over here, you got 3% all resistances, 4% max life. If you want to grab this one as well, because you're feeling squishy, using the Paragon board to fix your toughness on your character is totally fine. You will have enough points to do that. So come up here, work your way to this node. Okay. So then which glyphs should you use? Well, this goes back to the tags we talked about on your skill tree. What we would do is we would look at our main damage ability. Let's say it's Blazing Scream. It uses core skills, Demonology, Hellfire, Greater Demon, Summon, Channeled. So any glyph that is multiplying those things is going to be a solid option. So we come back into the Paragon board and we choose from one of our glyphs. So we look at this one right here. It says for every 5 willpower purchased within range, we're going to deal 6.3% increased damage with Demonology skills, right? And then you gain 17% increased damage while you have a Greater Demon Summon. To unlock this additional bonus, we have to get 40 willpower in this area. So we would put it here, okay? And this is great because we're using Demonology skills and our main damage ability is a Greater Demon that's always summoned. And then the final legendary bonus is increased Demonology damage. So all 3 bonuses apply to this build. That's what you're looking for. You want all 3 of those to apply to your damage dealing abilities. If they do, that's a good glyph. You can safely invest in it. That will be perfectly fine. That's all there is to glyphs. That's how you choose which one of these glyphs to use. And what you're going to quickly realize is there's a lot of glyphs, but most of them don't apply to your build. This one, Archfiend abilities. I'm not using Archfiend abilities. This one, Hex. I'm not focused on Hex right now. This one, Occult. This isn't an Occult build currently. Okay, so they disqualify themselves. So it feels like you have a ton of choices and it's going to be hard to decide, but the reality is you don't. So you just put the one that actually applies to the skill that you're using, boom, you're good. And since you get 5 boards, it's going to be hard to find more than 5 of these that all 3 stats apply to your build. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to pay attention to here is it says in order to unlock that second bonus, we need 40 willpower. So we're going to look for nodes that have willpower, particularly 10 willpower. Look at that. So right now we have 15 out of 40. Grab that. Now we're at 25 out of 40. Okay. So come here, grab that. Now we are at 35 out of 40. And then we can just grab some more willpower nodes. Boom. Now we're at 45 out of 40. And the Demonology damage is now at 57% at the top there. We take these off, that Demonology damage is 31%. So if we hover over this one right here, it says this one alone is adding 12.7% Demonology damage. So you can see how you start multiplying your damage really fast once you start getting this Paragon board set up. You start getting your glyphs leveled up by going into the pit to level them up. And man, you're going to be really powerful really fast. So the next hard decision that confuses every new player is you get to this point right here. After you get the nodes you want in this area, you're going to work your way up to the next board. And you want to do this sooner than later because legendary nodes. So the legendary node is how you're going to decide which board you're going to pick. And again, the boards pick themselves because only certain boards are going to apply to your build. So Fathomless. Each demon you've summoned in the last 6 seconds increases your damage by 15% up to 105%. So this could be good if you're summoning a lot of demons. If you're not summoning a lot of demons, this is useless for you. You'd skip it. Next, demonic spicules. Damaging enemies with demonology skills shreds their soul permanently, increasing all damage you deal to them by 40% and gaining 2% per hit up to 120. Okay, that one could be good because remember, I'm using demonology abilities on this build. So let's look at this. The next one, while in demon form, your demonology skills damage is increased by 3% for every point of dominance you currently have. While not in demon form, you gain 1 dominance every 2 seconds. Okay, I've built my character so that I have loads of dominance, extra dominance in fact. So I have around 40 dominance, which means 3 times 40, that's 120% multiplier. That is huge. Then the rare nodes, these are secondary. We kind of care about these, but we really don't care about these. We are choosing entirely based on the legendary node. So you don't have to read all this stuff down here and get overwhelmed. You just choose the top one. Does it apply to your build? Yes. Okay, fine. Boom. Now you're going to slap it on here. How do you slap it on? Well, at first, the first thing you're going to do as a new player, until you get to Paragon 100, 150, you're just fishing for these legendary nodes because your glyphs aren't leveled up yet. So putting a glyph in here isn't helping that much. Putting this glyph in right here, that's not helping that much because your glyph's really low level. So you want to get to these nodes as fast as possible. So you'll just rotate the board in such a way that you get to this node as fast as possible. Okay, so we attach it. Now we come here, go straight to that node. Bam. We just unlocked an incredible power spike for our character because this is multiplicative. It's huge. That's big. Okay, so what else do we want to do? Well, again, if you're earlier in your character's life, you could work your way over here, unlock this glyph because it's right there, and then slap your next glyph in there. Okay. And then you'd get enough willpower or whatever stat you need to unlock the second bonus in this area. Boom, boom. There we go. What are we at? We're at 35. We'll grab one more. Okay. So we unlocked the second multiplier on this one. All of it's unlocked. We can come back and put more willpower in here later, but now we're going to want to first go and unlock another board. So you could come here right next to this one. So we'll grab it. 8% max life, 3% all resistance. This is huge for our toughness, right? That's not bad at all to grab that yellow node early and really hold on to that forever. That's a fantastic node. And we're going to go to the next board. Okay, what board should we choose? Again, same process. We're going to scroll through here till we see a legendary node that excites us. Hellfire skills deal 450% increased damage to healthy enemies. Okay, a healthy enemy is any enemy above 80% health. So this means you have a really good chance of one-shotting every enemy you come in contact with, which just feels amazing. So let's grab that. Okay, we're going to grab this. And again, we want to rotate the board so that we can get to this legendary node ASAP, because early on, this is the most important thing to us. We can always come back in here and redo these boards for maximum efficiency. When we get to like Paragon 200, 250, you know, we can kind of fish around, get a few points back and get some extra nodes that we want to invest in. But for now, you don't have to overthink it. Attach board. So we'll rotate the board, get nice and close to this legendary node. That's going to be a huge spike for our character. And it's like, which way do we go to get there? Because we obviously have to go one or the other. Do we want the 10% damage, 3 all res, or 3 all res, 2% armor? I'm going to take the armor. It's going to have more of an impact on our build. Okay, there we go. And then if you want, you could grab that yellow node right there. This is massive. Now your character has so much power from just grabbing a few legendary nodes, even though your glyphs aren't leveled up. And then eventually you'll get your glyphs and you'll come back here and you'll go, okay, if I want this thing to really shine, it needs a lot of willpower, because right now it's only doing 7 and 25. And now after putting points into willpower, it's doing 7 and 61% vulnerable damage. And if you're having a hard time spotting the nodes you're looking for, this one needs willpower. So you could just come here, click willpower, and it highlights all the willpower nodes. So you can be like, oh, I missed the willpower here. Or you can see, oh, I didn't miss any, you know, there you go. And you can have a maximum of 5 boards. So you have more than enough Paragon points with the 300 points you're going to get all 5 boards and to get every node you want on those 5 boards. And there's not really going to be more than 5 boards that apply directly to your build. So again, the boards kind of choose themselves when you understand what tags your skills have on this tree, right? We hover over our main damage ability. We see what tags it has, and then we look for the boards that affect those tags. And we look for the glyphs that affect those tags. That's it. You are now a master build crafter in Diablo 4. You can come up with a build all on your own without looking at a build guide if you want to. That's how simple it is, which is kind of the beauty of Diablo 4 compared to some other ARPGs. This is one where everybody is absolutely capable of creating their own build if they want to. All right, let's talk about settings that you should absolutely change or turn on. So here we go. Some of these are more personal preference, but others like advanced tooltip and advanced tooltip information, these should absolutely be turned on. You're just flying blind if you don't have these on. You can't tell if you're picking up a bad version of an item or a good one. These are what's showing you the range that it could roll in. So this one says imprinted, skills deal 110%, and this rolled 110 out of 80 to 120. So we know it's on the upper end, but still not perfect, right? You wouldn't know that. You would just know it was 110. You wouldn't know if it could have been 300% or if 110 was the max without that advanced tooltip turned on. I highly recommend displaying your health and your resource above your character's head. So if we look at my character right now, I can see that my health is full and that both of my resources are full. Never mind the fact that on the warlock, your health is blue and your mana is red, which is incredibly confusing at first. But yeah, just know the top one is your health and everything below that are your resource values. For monster health bars, I recommend having these always on. It makes them a lot easier to see, especially in dark places if they've got a floating bar over their head. Without this, it can be kind of easy to miss them. You can be hit by something and not really know what. I recommend turning on the loot filter shortcut so that you can use the loot filter system when you're ready. You can also get to the loot filter right here under the gameplay menu. But when you turn that shortcut on, it appears right here as well on the main menu. Under controls, if you're playing on PC, just be aware of the fact that you can choose between mouse movement and keyboard movement. So if you like moving with WAS, that's totally an option in this game. Just change it over to keyboard movement. Under accessibility, it's really handy to make a couple of changes here. One is for your cursor. You can change the color of your cursor. So if you're playing this game and you keep losing track of your cursor over top of all the mobs that you're fighting, you can change the color of your cursor to a really bright color here if you'd like to. I've got mine on fluorescent green, which seems to work fairly well. And you can also change the size of the cursor to make it bigger or smaller if you would want. So the bigger and the brighter it is, the easier it is to know where on the screen this bad boy is at. And then down below that in the navigation assist, the pathfinder is actually really nice. And so is the HUD compass. These are new features. So you can turn these on. So right click on the map somewhere, wherever you're planning to go next, and you'll see little white dots on the floor. But you can follow these dots and it'll take you to your location. Also, you see this green arrow in front of my character pointing the way. So I can just head in the direction that that arrow tells me to. Super handy for just quickly getting from one quest to the next when you're doing the main story, or just for running the locations on the map once you've landed from a teleport. And just like you could change the color of the cursor, you can change the color of the arrow that's pointing the way. So now let's go over how the loot filter works really quickly. So if you're new to loot filters, they're as much for hiding the junk as they are for highlighting all of the useful things. So the first rule you would typically have would be to hide all. So now there's no condition, so it's just going to hide literally every piece of loot in the game. You can't see it. And then you would layer on top of that what you want to see. So the rules on the bottom get superseded by the rules above them. So if we say hide all, and then we say, but we want to show legendaries, right? Now it's going to show us every single legendary item that drops. Maybe we also want to see rares, talismans, mythic uniques, right? And so here you could just make it so now you'll never see regular, common, and magic items. But then what if you were like, oh, but I also want to see ancestral items always, regardless of the color they are, because an ancestral white item can be upgraded into an ancestral unique at the cube, and ancestral blues can be crafted as well, and so on. So this is how this system works. Alternatively, a good way to dip your toes into this so that you don't accidentally hide loot that's really important and you forget to put a rule that is showing it, right? Because that's kind of dangerous. What you might want to do first is start with a rule like this. Add condition. Let's say you're looking for a specific type of item. You know, maybe you're looking for specific stats. So you can say has required affixes. And then you can select the affixes that you're really looking for on items so that they stand out, so that you make sure you pick those up. So you can make it so that you're only seeing items that have the stats that you would want. If it's an item that doesn't have any of the stats you want, it won't show up and it won't waste your time. So you can come in here and say, oh yeah, weapon damage is always good. Damage multiplier is always good. Maybe attack speed is or isn't good for your build, crit strike chance, crit strike multiplier, right? Depending on your build, check the ones that apply to your build, you know, and then on armor, you know, you want max life, maybe you want armor, maybe you want resist to all elements, or maybe you just want to make a rule that makes it really obvious when a resist all item shows up. This is a great crafting base on a piece of armor. So you say, okay, cool. So whenever it has that, it's going to be in a new color. We can say recolor. We can pick the color that this shows up as. And so now, except this one's going to be red. Okay. So if we drop an item like this one with all on it, now when it's on the ground, it's going to be in red. It stands out, right? You can make it whatever color you want so that when something you're looking for stands out really, really well. There we go. Put that back on and favorite it again so I can't drop it on accident. So that's what I would do. I would recommend using it to highlight items first, and then once you get more comfortable with it, you can use it to hide junk as well. Or just be careful, maybe instead of hiding everything, make individual rules to hide the things you don't want to see. That way you're not accidentally hiding things that you do want to see. So we could hide all common items that are not ancestral, for instance, and magic items, and even rare. At a point, you're not going to want to see anything that's not ancestral, because you don't want any gear that is below item power 900. It's a waste of your time to be looking at something like that. So you could have that rule. So now when there's an ancestral item, you can see it, but when it's not ancestral, you don't see it. See, it doesn't show up here. Now this brings up a good point. The problem with this rule is we want to see all charms because charms are important. You need to be salvaging these so that you get a currency that allows you to re-roll the good ones until they're amazing and you get something like +3 or +4 to your skills. So all that to say, just be really careful. If you hide something, be sure to test it out, you know, toggle the filter on and off after you kill bosses and open chests for a while. In the keybinds, you can bind a toggle button. Make sure it's not hiding anything you would have wanted to pick up. And if it is, you can come in here, add a condition and say, item type, you know, I really want to make sure that I am seeing charms and seals. Definitely always want to see those. So we say show, save, and there, now the rare non-ancestral charm is showing. Okay, so just be careful playing around with this thing. It can save you loads of time in the end game when you're getting screenfuls of loot at a time, but it can also accidentally hide incredibly useful items on you. All right, guys, if you found this video helpful, please take a second to leave a comment. Let the algorithm and other people know that this video is worth watching, and it would mean a ton to me. If you have any questions, if there's anything I didn't answer, please leave a question down in the comments, and I will absolutely do my very best to answer every single one. Thank you so much for watching. I'm LUCKYGHOST. If you enjoy quality guides like this one, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell to be alerted to my future gaming guides. If you're looking for more Diablo content, check out the description of this video where I'll link any other Diablo guides I have out. Massive shout out to my YouTube channel members for making massive videos like this possible. Good luck. Now go kick Mephisto's ass. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.